Hello, people. We're here. This is Joe and I's kind of new series. We're going to be streaming regularly every week at this time on Wednesday and this time on Saturday. So, consistency and commitment. That's one of the things I'm going to talk about today, and community. Joe and I have been talking about what it what are some things it might take to bring this community to the next level. And so that's this stream is part of that project. Joe, you want to introduce yourself or like say a little bit about what we're doing today?
Sure. A lot of folks have probably seen me on your stream by now, but for folks who are just still not really sure how I showed up, um, I first got acquainted with Jeff about a year ago, um, related to some of his earlier work that he did more often with PF Ewing. I had gotten exposed to PF Ewing largely through um, networking I was doing related to the IDW. Some people might know that's short for intellectual dark web, that online movement. But I've since separated myself from that, and I had refocused my work more on finance and investing, which was something I had been working on over the years, concurrent with all that. So I had been in contact with Jeff until for a couple months until about December of last year. Then, as I refocused on more on squarely on finance and investing. Um, and he and I had a period of about 9 or 10 months where we weren't in communication, but I decided to check back in again. And that's been going on for about a month now since then. And we are noticing that there's still an alignment in things that we want to do um, in this space, this thing we've sort of uh, improvised in calling the Nexus. And where we think there is alignment is in one, Jeff, you want to do your part to promote men's mental health and other forms of support online. And me, my interest in finance and investing is in the way it allows folks to achieve financial autonomy, especially in a world where that's increasingly difficult to do and where the individual is more dislocated from their communities, and where workplace relationships and career momentum is increasingly impersonal. It's automated through an HR-driven process, and often ones I think if we think we look at what Jeff has often discussed, one that can be hostile to certain personalities, often ones that are considered more male or masculine, even if nothing foul actually occurs. And so the great quote to just sort of summarize why I like finance and investing, why I'm a stocks guy. Peter Lynch, his quote goes, "The stock doesn't know you own it, so it will never be personally spiteful to you." And so that means any individual, regardless of their background, sort of gets a fresh start when they um, take some sort of effort in finance and investing to secure themselves financially, as a way of putting it. So the merits of your investments are going to be purely on the facts, and it's not going to be based about anything you as a person. You don't have to be worried about being bogged down by that. Um, so we're hoping, Jeff and I, that we can continue to find more people to broaden this nexus, such that there'll be additional pillars to provide this kinds of these different forms of support and guidance, and that we can create content where there's these mutual alignments in terms of the kinds of people we're hoping to that will benefit from what we do. Does that sound about right to you, Jeff?
Yeah, I would call it the Gen X's, but yes, it sounds completely accurate. Um,
Yes.
I'm and it men's mental health is my focus, particularly neurodivergent men. But the community itself that I'm trying to build, I think, is inclusive of people other than just men. It's looking like so. I'm approaching it from the larger concept of building a healthy, supportive community, really for anyone that needs it. But it's going to be targeted toward men, neurodivergent men specifically. If other people benefit, that's fine. But the norms are going to be for that population. And um, today I'm going to talk about commitment, which is really the key ingredient to me to building a successful community long term and taking it to the next level. Without commitment, the community is kind of going to stay where it is now. So commitment is the like the pass key to the next phase of community building. Yes, you are, Zat. You know me though. I think you all are. Adversity can be. We'll talk about that. So I'm taking this from two sources. There's a men's group manual that I use. Uh, it helped me organize some of the men's group I used to run, and it talks about commitment. So I'm going to hit a few highlights from that, and then I had an AI chat that expanded on that. The interesting thing about the AI chat is at the end of giving me all of these points on commitment, it tells me that for the community like the one I'm building, focused on men's mental health and neurodivergence, commitment becomes even more critical. I didn't tell any of that. So I just realized that the AI is building up a picture of me as I interacted with it based on past conversations. And it's not just like a new, fresh query every time. And so that was my first taste of that. It has me a little unnerved. All right. This is from the men's group manual thing. Without commitment, the group does not work. Support groups, channels, communities like this, they're totally voluntary. We talked about the third space before. And if people don't come to it, it does not exist. So commitment is what ensures the longevity necessary to build the trust that's essential to open up, risk, and share more of who we are. The first commitment is on my part. I have to commit to setting a goal for the community, kind of defining what type of community I want, what I want in the community, what I don't. I've showed that chart with the red zone, the yellow zone, the green zone, the threshold of transformation, etc. That's the target population that I'm trying to build a community with. Commitment to be here consistently every day, every week. I try to put in 40 hours a week, sometimes 8 hours a day. I feel like I've been demonstrating my commitment for the last year and a half. My problem has always been, and this is a lifelong problem, finding people that can match my commitment level. Commitment is my superpower. I have no problem showing up when I'm needed. I can commit to board games. I can commit to doing a stream. I could commit to binge watching movies. I can commit to a job, showing up on time, etc. I've never had a problem organizing my priorities so that I can meet my commitments. I'm looking for other people that have the same level of commitment. And Joe, it seems like um, maybe one of those people. So we've decided to kind of put our superpowers together and see what happens. There's also community commitment. And community is those people with whom we can truly be ourselves. And I've said over and over on this channel, I am trying to create a space where people can come here and be themselves, as long as they're not destructive to society. Because I think being ourselves is mentally healthy. That is a big part of mental health. If each member of your group has commitment to build community and friendship, it will help make the group a better place. The author M. Scott Peck has some writings that he's done on community. And in one of his books called The Different Drum, he makes a distinction that there is more than a quantum leap between an ordinary group and a community. They are entirely different phenomena. Community, no one is attempting to heal or convert you, to fix you, to change you. Instead, the members accept you as they are. You are free to be you. And being so free, you are free to discard defenses, masks, disguises, free to seek your own psychological and spiritual health. And I do agree with that 100%. That is what I'm trying to do here. So Joe brought up the concept of the Nexus, like this stream being kind of like the Star Wars cantina that other people can come and hook up their projects to, so that it creates like a centralized hub for people that are working on their own passion projects, their own like whatever they're trying to get off the ground, and how we can use that to all support each other as a community and benefit from that synergy of the whole being greater than the individual parts. Um, Before I hit the AI points, there's 7 or 8 points on commitment that I want to cover with the AI. Do you have anything you want to add in?
Sure. I'd like to state for my own part that most of the things in my life that have failed, gone off the rails, got close but didn't quite make it, whatever the nature of the failure, um, have been from a lack of commitment by the other participants. It's one of those things where that really needs to be the central idea for these things going forward. For anything that we do is you have to be willing to follow through. I have often done my part. I've often done my part at great personal cost, expense, and sacrifice. And it is a crushing thing when the other participants or individuals involved don't follow through. And I cannot get back what is lost when that happens. And, you know, I'm sure some folks listening right now know exactly what that's like. And in fact, uh, as as much as Jeff often he'll often always gravitate to identifying the internal locus of control in a situation, um, which is his role to do, doing um, having a career and background in mental health. But it is also true that most ambitious things that we want to do in life, or things that require a certain level of ambition, a certain scale or size, are only possible when multiple people get involved and everyone pulls their weight, and that is not possible without commitment. You take one brick out of the edifice and it all comes tumbling down at that point. So that's what we're hoping we can steadily do. Um, and so, over time, we're hoping that other folks can get on board, and whatever they bring to the table for the kind of content we want to make, that is helpful to our audience in this panelverse space, as it's sometimes called, and in an increasingly digital world where interpersonal relationships are ephemeral and they just they don't provide for us in the same way that they used to. We're hoping this can be helpful. So I'm going to do my part. Jeff's going to do his part. We're hoping going forward, people can continue to work together, and we can have um, we can produce content and uh, have events that are helpful to our audience in whatever way they want. So Jeff's is the most generally obvious with the mental health support, and then mine is for folks who if they see an opportunity to make their money work for them, I can tell them a little bit about how that works and how I've been able to reach my own financial security, as much as it is possible for a person of any various savings or income level, right? So that's what we're going to work with. And other people over time, we hope, will bring other things to the table, other skills, other competencies that enhance this overall Nexus idea.
Yeah, I think what we're trying to do is kind of create a little core within the community that has that same level of commitment. Because if we can find 4 or 5 of us, um, I think the potential for this is unlimited, and I'm really eager to explore that. As the thing that keeps it from being a cult is it's completely voluntary. Anybody's free to come and go. And we're not even charging for this. There's not even a membership fee or anything. So it's you participate at the level you want. And what Joe and I are trying to do is create an extra level of participation for those that do want to invest more of their time and effort into building something and getting the rewards that come from that. Um, my conversation with the AI, it says commitment is a cornerstone of community building, which I would agree with, serving as the glue that holds individuals together and fosters a sense of belonging, trust, and mutual support. That's very much what I've tried to go for with this channel. And so far, it seems to be working. Um, Number one, it's the foundation of trust. Commitment cultivates trust, which is essential for a community to thrive. When the members consistently show up, support each other, invest in shared goals, trust deepens, and trust in turn will lead to stronger relationships, making the community more resilient in the face of challenges. It's reliability. It's knowing that if I step onto this square, it's going to support, it's not going to collapse. Like I can consistently come here and have this platform be a foundation for whatever I'm trying to do. Number two, consistency and reliability. Just what I said. A community depends on regular participation from its members. And I think we have that. Like I can't stop praising my audience enough. The people that show up here every day regularly and have been almost from the start. You are part of the foundation of this community, whether you realize it or not. You are already part of the commitment. When people are committed, they actively contribute to the activities, the discussions, the goals. This reliability makes the community dynamic and engaging, while sporadic or inconsistent involvement can weaken the collective energy and purpose. I think with a strong enough base of commitment, and I do believe we have that here, we have people participating in activities, discussions, goals. I think we have enough stable commitment where the sporadic stuff can kind of come and go, and we're at the point where we can weather that. Number three, a shared identity and ownership. This is where the kind of the concept of all being outliers comes in, and the concept of the nexus. It fosters a sense of ownership among members. Like, you get out of this what you put into it. And if there are people here that have been with me for a while now, that have been helping to build this, and this is not just my community, and those people, I hope, feel some sense of ownership and benefit from this, and like entitlement to some kind of return on the investment that they put in this. As people invest time and effort, they begin to feel like they're an integral part of the group's identity. I really hope this is happening. It helps to develop a shared culture, norms, and values which are vital in creating a sense of belonging and identity within the community. Number four, support and accountability. In a committed community, members support one another emotionally, socially, and sometimes even practically. Where Joe comes in, he's going to be our Minister of Economic Empowerment. He's going to help us find ways to empower each other on very concrete, practical levels. Because I'm not a finance guy or a money guy, so having somebody like Joe, I think, can give us that aspect of the community that's been missing here for a while. The support network creates accountability, helping individuals to stay engaged in personal and community growth. Now, I'm honestly not big on accountability. It's that internal locus of control. I believe you vote with your feet. If this is not your your thing, or if it stops working for you, just go find another community or channel. Um, if you some people want and need that accountability, so we can talk about that down the road of how to provide that for people that do use accountability, um, kind of to help them achieve their goals. I do it a different way. I do it more internally, intrinsic motivation. In the context of mental health or self-help, commitment provides a structure where members can rely on one another, maintain momentum in their personal journeys. Sustainability of goals. A community with committed members is more likely to achieve its goals and stay relevant over time. I think this is where Joe and I come in. We're trying to create a stable platform of committed people where we can all, because like Joe said, you can't do it with just one person. So if we can all come together and help each other achieve our goals, I think the larger community will benefit from that collectively and stay relevant over time, as it says. And this is only possible when members are dedicated to the cause. And I think that dedication comes when they're inspired enough by the vision, or they see enough results from what you're trying to provide, that it kind of fuels and sustains that dedication. So more ways to do that is what we're looking at too. Resilience and conflict resolution. Conflict is inevitable in any group. That M. Scott Peck guy that I talked about, in some of his writings, he actually believes that conflict is one of the ingredients that allows a community to grow. He calls a community without conflict a pseudo community, where all of the members are trying to stay polite and friendly and avoid conflict, and the community stagnates. It's through conflict that you test trust, you test ability. I've said before that my trust grows when I fight with somebody and I see how they manage conflict. I can determine how much to trust them, like how much more trust to invest at that point through seeing how they handle conflict. Commitment means being willing to work through problems, invest in solution, and maintain the community even when things are difficult. And I do think that we try to do this here. Um, we jokingly had drama court at one point to try to help with this, but I think even without drama court, we try to do something similar when problems arise. And the last one is growth and inclusion. Committed members are also likely to invite others in the community, helping it grow. They act as ambassadors who share the values and benefits of the group with newcomers, create a welcoming and inclusive atmosphere, and commitment ensures that growth is not just in numbers, but also deepening the quality of relationships and interactions. And again, that is what I set out to do from the start. That is what I'm starting to see happen here because of all of you. And that is what we are looking for ways to continue to increase. And I've talked about adding an extra membership tier at some point, and it will probably emerge from the work that Joe and I are starting today. Hey, Moose. Nope, not a meeting, but actually, we will talk about alcoholism when Leggy and I do our album review because the album I picked, that's a very strong theme in the album. So there'll be some alcohol talk later. All right, let me catch up on comments, and then Joe, you can take over for a bit if you want.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to some of the things we can get done. I mean, I think probably the best YouTube content I see, whether it's purely entertainment or let's say there's something more educational or professional to it, the best stuff is always collaborative stuff. When you get two people who represent two halves of some equation and bring them together, whether it's an interview or some kind of contest, anything of that nature. I think those are usually some of the best things, and um, these are the kind of doors that open up. We experimented a little bit um, with trying to see what he read, but then it disappeared.
Oh,
Um,
who, Tommy?
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
loving his counterpoint.
Is that who Station
His
33 is?
ironic cynicism.
Is Station 33 Tommy?
Yeah, Illuma Tommy.
Oh, Illuma Tommy. Okay, not Toxic Tommy.
No,
Okay.
not toxic Tommy. The other. I don't want to call him non-toxic Tommy, but the other Tommy.
Yeah. Um, and so um, see what he just said. The thing I've been working on and talking to panels about is there's a clear difference between classic channels and the panelverse. Ooh, that's an interesting concept. When you say classic channels, like what do you have in mind there?
Probably non-drama channels, non-panelverse channels, like probably like your stock channel where you just
Oh
talk
yeah.
about stocks.
Oh yeah. Like mine is very dry compared to the drama. I'm just a lot of my streams so far have just been me doing work sessions and then taking questions from whoever shows up while I do that. Um,
What do you want to talk about the economic empowerment part because that's one component we're trying to bring into the
yeah.
community. If we get enough people to like get enough projects off the ground and sustain them, there's economic potential there for all of us.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Um, so for me, I think one thing that is different in terms of um, how I view money now compared to 10 years ago is I know what I can do with it. And, I realized if I had I could have known the things I know now when I was 20. It's not particularly complicated stuff about how investing works and how you can make your money work for you. It's just that I didn't. It didn't occur to me to look into it. I didn't know where to look to it. I wasn't asking the right questions yet. I had to go through a bit more of life before I could ask the right questions. But once I did, and once I understood how the financial system works and things clicked, um, I was then able to plan. Okay, I just need to earn more money, save a lot more what I earn, and then I have a base of capital that I can put to work. And I spent a few years doing that, and I got enough built up that I could reasonably leave the traditional workplace and focus more on the stuff that I wanted to do, and I don't have to worry about keeping the lights on. And that's sort of what brought me back to Jeff as well. As I had, it was after a period where I had been doing that consistently and realized I was going to be able to continue doing it. And a lot of it has to do with the years of preparation I had made beforehand. And Jeff and I have talked before, and even some audience members, whether it was just in chat or if they come on the panel, about how talking about finance and investing may not be great for people who don't already have money, but there's also the part of it where the decisions we make to build up money to increase our savings are influenced by our awareness of what we can do with it. If you just see some money as something that sits there and it's useless until you do something with it, it's very easy just to not worry about spending it and go ahead and do something with it now. But when you see the potential over time, it changes the paradigm in which we look at life. And I think there's a problem in the culture of the financial world where the professionals really want to make themselves look essential, and they overcomplicate the way it all works, and it creates this intimidation among your average person that this is something that they're too dumb to think about and they're afraid to ask about, and they can never actually plan. And it's crazy to me how little financial planning occurs because like in this world, because it's something that is important to every single person. There's nobody who doesn't need some kind of financial plan in their life to some extent. You know, whatever your means may be or your goals may be, like everybody needs money. You know, not everyone needs to eat pork. You know, you take pork away from some people, they'll find other food sources. But everybody um, needs money, and so I really want to uncomplicate things and just get things down to their bare bones, and show people that there's little things you can do, whether it's just simple saving or um, using your own everyman knowledge to look at potential investments and see a few that are understandable to you, and make a few investment decisions for the long term based on it. So that's really all it is.
I did see where McDonald's stock plummeted because of the E. coli, like a few day
Yeah.
day after Trump. And I know you were researching it the other day.
Okay. So yeah, with that said, um, I see that Station 33 said he wanted to talk to me about how his stock success and awareness of the market makes him think it's not going to stay what we knew it to be. Not quite sure what he means by that, but if you would like to um, elaborate more on what he means by that, I can maybe guess some things, but I'd like to see him write it out um, a bit more completely to see what his thoughts are.
And then also there's this concept of the nexus. So let's say other people see this and they decide, oh, I have something I want to bring to this, or I have some commitment I can spare. Um, what are some ways for them to get involved, or what are like how would they make use of the nexus? I think it's kind of like limited by your own creative potential, but maybe some examples or guidelines.
Yeah, I think an important one is so there's somebody who I wouldn't say is part of the Nexus, but like if they were to suddenly show up and want to be a part, I think I know what they would bring is lawyer chick. And so there are a lot of very important general legal questions that folks may have, and a lot of I know with the legal system, for example, I used to work at a law firm, so some of this I have a background there too, but um there were a lot of popular myths people had about the legal process that were completely inaccurate and led them to make bad decisions. And so, if people just had a sharper understanding of how a legal process works, they could probably make better decisions. They would probably know what kind of things to avoid more often. If you look at some of her shorts that she's uploaded, there's like a couple like legal urban myths that she's, I think, trying to dispel in those. Um, and so, there's, there, if we're thinking about like what would be a collaborative project between me and someone like her, it could be a topic where a financial question and a legal question like intersect. Um, so like maybe an example might be, um, if you get sued, um, what assets you have to worry about. I do know generally from my background is that if you have a 401k, in most cases, that is um, bankruptcy remote or judgment proof that it cannot be claimed
But
from
not your New
you.
York City luxury apartment and all the other
Yeah.
stuff that
So
Rudy Giuliani now has to give up.
yeah. So there are interesting subtleties like that to explore to make content about. Um, that we can make directly accessible to our audience. And I think the nature of streaming is that you can directly engage with folks and clear up questions in real time. That a prepared video, it does not lend itself to that. And so we have not discussed this with her. She's just somebody that I've noticed. I was watching her stream last night. We may never actually see her get involved in something like this, but if I think we wanted a more concrete example besides me and Jeff of somebody else, I think that's a good example right there of what could happen.
So if anybody has anything to bring that they want to intersect with something that somebody else in the Nexus is working on, that's an
Yeah,
opportunity.
like if somebody knows how to cook, right? If they're just good at like preparing home meals, like I know Shameless, for example, um, shares the things she cooks. A lot of people do not really know how to cook for themselves or to cook healthy foods. This is actually something that is lost in the modern day. And like I didn't know how to make biscuits until a couple months ago when I decided to look up a recipe and how to do it. I finally baked biscuits for the first time, and it was great when I could. I was like, "Oh, this is good."
If you can get the
They're
can
better.
open.
Ah, that's funny. No, I made the dough. I worked it with my hands. I did the folds and stuff. I followed the technique, and it was great. It was delicious. They were kind of like those biscuits that are in the can where they have like those layers and you can pull them apart real easily. They're flaky like
Oh
that.
yeah, I love those. The ones you could
Mine,
peel,
mine, mine came out just like that. It
eat
was
one
great.
layer at a time.
Yeah, or if you just want to put like some jam in them or something, you can very easily. It was great.
I like mustard on my biscuits.
Yeah. Uh, Zatoichi said, "Joe, get involved in RICO." That's RICO in all caps. I don't know what that is. I don't recognize
Oh,
that
that's the
acronym.
racketeering. Isn't that the racketeering law?
I'm not sure.
Racketeering, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations Act. It was enacted by Title IX of the Organized Crime Control Act of 1970. It's the one I think that goes out of. Um, it allows the government to punish individuals associated with criminal activity, especially the leaders of crime organizations. They needed special permission to do that.
How would I get involved in that? I'm curious to know. Or is Zatoichi just um,
Who
doing
knows?
some
You
light
never know.
trolling? He's done a
You
little bit
never
of
know.
that
I
throughout
think
the.
I think you should always take suspicions of light trolling seriously here.
Yeah, I mean, even when I first showed up, I did some light trolling. Um, so it's always fun to do. He did say he's making chicken lo mein. I don't think that's a troll. I think he's actually cooking for himself.
Yeah, I think he is too. Um, well, I part of this was to try to get the community to the next level. So you want to maybe try to open up a panel and see who we only want people today for Joe and I's little segment show that we're doing. It's not a complete open panel. It's people that want to come up specifically that are interested in this like idea we have of the Nexus and taking the community to the next level. And then
Yeah.
Leggy and I will be doing a Gen X panel after this, and there might be room for some more general chat there.
So yeah, let's
Here,
bring people on if you want to
I'll
get
pop
the
the link.
link ready. Yeah.
And part of it is just providing like some consistency throughout the week too. If you know that Joe and I are here every Wednesday and Saturday at the same time, that'll add some stability. And I'll still do my random live streams throughout the day.
So while we wait for folks, you want to hear an example of something that I would really like to do, but it's definitely impossible without more people. But it's just even a simple little thing where having more people makes a big difference. This isn't like necessarily even a big thing, but it's just to sort of illustrate that if you wanted to do big things, it's hard to do that on your own. Um, so I'm a big fan of the old school Mario Party games, especially Mario Party 2 and 3. Those were on the Nintendo 64. They came out in like 2000, 2001 or 2. Um, so they're pretty old games by now. But to a lot of folks, they actually are the best Mario Party games. Um, and those are multiplayer games. They're party games. So you would need like 3 or 4 people for them to be playable and fun. And they are extremely exciting games when you play them. Um, but you need people on board to play them. And I would like to play it consistently. I would like to have a regular thing every week or two, or I could have a session and play some bouts of that game with folks. But I would need people on board to do it.
So it's
And
not. It's a game you play with other people. It's not like
yes,
traditional
it's a party
Mario.
game.
Uh,
Yeah, it's a
what
party
kind
game.
of stuff do you do?
So the concept of the game, and it's become even more interesting to me now as I look into investing, because I look at a lot of games now as sort of tests of risk management, and I try to identify what are the risky parts, what are the reward parts, and then how do I play the game from an angle of, um, um, you know, having a favorable asymmetry between risk and reward. And and monopolies, I mean, Monopoly is one example, right? And Mario Party is another one. The basic idea of the game is that you have Mario characters. So you have Mario, you have Luigi, you have other folks. Everyone can pick a different character, and you go around a board. You collect coins, as you often do in Mario, and then use those coins to purchase stars. So if you're familiar with like just the typical yellow Mario star with the cartoon eyes, you collect those. Whoever collects the most by the end of the game wins. But there's a lot of chaotic things that can happen in the course of a game that could disrupt that. There are things you could do to interfere with folks. It's a very interactive board. It's like a board game inside of a video game. So think of it if you were playing on a very mechanical board game. It could do a lot fancier things than a sheet of cardboard could. That's sort of how it works.
That's
That's
not
why
been
it's
my
in a video game.
experience.
Yeah. So it's an interesting test in risk management because there are um, things if you think carefully enough, you can make decisions that have better odds than others in that. And um, there's like there could be a lot happening at once. But if you're really good at the game, you can make a lot of correct decisions. And um, I actually think that's a good test of investing in some way. Similar thing with Monopoly, even. Um, you could be faced like multiple decisions, but if you understand like the risk and reward elements of the different decisions, you can choose a better one than others. Um, so I think those things are good mental challenges for someone like me. I think they're interesting games in that they teach us um, to make decisions with a level of discomfort or uncertainty, but where we're sort of committed to we make a commitment to one that'll get us a best result in most cases. And let's take a look at some of the comments. Why don't you use a stock trader and have people invest with fake money to see how they do? Um, well, I think I've seen that before. Like people do experimental portfolios. People can do that. Um,
Games just seem more fun.
a stock trader, I think one of the limitations there is one, your psychology is not the same when you do not have real money at stake. So I have nearly all of my savings invested in the market. So I have something at stake. And your ability to manage your risk has to do with your own psychology. In fact, the biggest obstacle in managing your risk is your own psychology. And it's just not going to be the same if you don't have skin in the game. So that's one thing. Um, and then the other thing, of course, is that there are other limits or there are other workarounds. Like you can basically, you don't have to worry about trade settling. So with a paper portfolio, you can get in and out of a position whenever you like. In real life, you have to wait for trades to settle before the cash is available to move around a lot. Um, there are other things that come and go with it. And then, uh, so you could be more perfect. You can control things more, and that again, kind of defeats the purpose of risk management. And additionally, everyone, um, like it. One of the things about like an experimental portfolio that just exists on paper is that everyone can look at it, but not everyone is necessarily going to understand each of those individual stocks as well. I think what's much more important when I think about like YouTubers or other um, content creators or authors that I like to study. I like to look at ones who improve my ability to look at stocks going forward and then determine if I um, have a grasp of them and I can make investment decisions based on them. And so it's very tempting to want to work with a stock right now and then watch where it goes. All right, and then of course you have to figure how much time are you waiting to pass. Like if you wait 3 months later and it's up or down, do you think that's a good measure of how sound the decision was? Well, I will tell you this: if you're looking to be a successful investor, you have to be in it for the long run. And I would say you should not buy a stock unless you are ready to be an owner of that business for 10 years. So basically, the market shuts down tomorrow, and or let's say that company gets delisted and it's no longer public, and the government says all stockholders are now private equity owners in this business, and that's just how it is. Would you be happy as an investor being stuck with private equity that you cannot liquidate? And if the answer to that is no, then you shouldn't buy the stock. That's my view of it. And so, in order to see how an investment does from a long-term perspective, you need a significant amount of time to pass. And I don't know that there's any. I could not create a lot of teachable moments doing a paper portfolio that um what we're checking in on once a year, maybe. What am I going to do in the meantime? And um there could be some use to it, but it's just it would be a small part of what I do. And again, are they all going
Well,
to be stock
I'm kind of
portfolios?
going
No.
back to that thing you said about, oh, this is so esoteric and for the
Yeah, it's
common
just it's that.
man, and I think Zach's trying to bring it down to a level where the common man might be able to grasp a little bit of it. And I feel like you're retreating back to, oh, it's just not worth it if you're not going to do the real complicated thing. And it brings it back to that kind of remote, out of reach.
Well, I mean, having a portfolio that people can copy does not help
Because I
people
tell you right now,
invest
people
better.
in this
Yeah.
community, a lot of us are not going to have these kind of portfolios. And so, having, if you want us to learn this, we're going to need some way other than actually living the stock investing life to do it.
Hmm.
So if you are trying to make it accessible to the rest of us, there's some steps before you get to the point you're at that maybe there are. I'm assuming there's introductory steps that people like us could take. Or if you're saying don't even walk through the front door until you have $10,000 cash, then that's not going to be relevant to like probably 80% of my audience.
Yeah, I don't even think it's really so much as that. I think because for my part,
Because I'm already disincentivized from learning all this, just hearing about it now. Like I'm like, oh, well, I'm not even close to this stage yet. It wouldn't even pay for me to play a stock game because I'm not going to be able to apply it for years.
um, and I understand that. I think if you want quick results, you know, which who doesn't want quick results? That's that's going to feel like a deterrent. Um,
Feel like a
and
what?
a deterrent. Um,
It's not
I-
so much quick result. I think Zad's talking about education, not actually like getting the benefit from the summer. I think he's talking about ways to educate people about investing, kind of like what you're doing with the Monopoly game. And
oh yeah.
maybe I'm mishearing you, but the message seems to say it's not worth doing those little exercises. If you're not going to have real stocks and play the real game, then there's no point in the common man trying to educate themselves with exercises.
Well, I'll put it this way. So here's a much better thing to do that I think is similar to what like a paper portfolio could do, but you don't have to wait long. Is you can look at stocks that have already gone 5 times in value, 10 times in value, and you can look at them and you can say, why did this happen? Because if you bought within the last decade and it went 5 or 10 times
What's
up,
an
you've made a lot
example
of
of one of
money.
those?
Well, Nvidia is a good example. I mean, within the last decade, Nvidia is like up 100x, and so you can look at what are the qualities of Nvidia that made it such a winner, and what are the extractable lessons that could be applied to analysis of investments going forward. And these are things you could do homework on as you're saving money before you actually invest. So before I actually really had anything invested, I was just reading about this stuff. I was learning about it so that when I got to a point where I could start deploying my capital, I would know what I wanted to do. And so that's something that can be done in the meantime, and a lot of my, analyses are
Are
looking
there
at,
ways to gamify that, or activity, like make activities to get a sense of that? Or is it there's no substitute for just sitting down and studying the company?
well, truly there's no complete substitute for sitting down and studying the company. But what you can do is you can understand like how you identify risk and reward. I will say that it gets a lot easier as time passes, as you just build up your base of knowledge. And again, this is for what you want to do. Like if you want to start picking stocks, you don't even necessarily have to do that. There are like more general things you could do talking about the market in general. And how different cycles work, like with interest rates. Like if you just want to put things into a fund, there are different strategies there. Well, ultimately, I want to tailor it to what will be digestible to the average individual. And I don't necessarily know where you know certain individuals may be.
That's where I think the
Um,
gap is.
yeah, and so um, it's going to vary from person to person. And then there's I remember there was this other YouTuber I like called Akira the Don. He's a musician. And he pointed out that when you talk to people, you kind of default to like feeling like they're just going to know everything that you know, but they don't. Um, you have no idea what they know and what they don't know. They could almost be in a completely different world. Um, so Um, I think if I were to like do some more content, I could make it clearer. One reason I haven't done as much lately is because I need to upgrade my StreamYard to um the premium so that I can have unlimited hours, and I'm almost out of my free time. Um, but like if I could like give one example is one of the first companies that I looked at and was invested in for some time was Aflac. And I looked at them because they were pretty well known. And I looked at how they had done. This was starting in like 2020, 2021. I looked at like why they ended up being a successful insurance company. And uh, one of the things that they did is they had a successful marketing campaign. That was the Aflac Duck, and that was actually very successful in Japan. They also had a good sales team in Japan as well, and they were able to get 20% of the insurance market over there. And that's actually where they make most of their money, is in Japan, not even the US. Even though around 2000, the year 2000, when you started seeing those duck commercials, they were mostly an American insurance business, but it ended up helping them out over there. And so marketing is like a big part. Marketing and sales are a big part of what make insurance companies better. The insurance companies with the better sales models are usually the ones that are most
So it's
successful.
not the product itself.
So the other half is their risk management. So insurance companies that know which business not to take or price effectively for it are the ones that are profitable, because um, if they have insurance liabilities that just are brutal, they'll start losing money, and then their balance sheet shrinks, and then that's less insurance business they can write. So um, you can look at other insurance companies that haven't been successful and be like, well, why is this? And it's either because they didn't have very good sales team, so they weren't able to reach customers, or rather often it's because when they had a year where there's a lot of claims, um, they were losing money that year and it crushed them. And so, um, it doesn't necessarily take long to look at examples of these and spot them and just see that for what it is. And then you can start to see when an insurance company um, is trading at a good price. So I can talk about an example. I came across a title insurance company um, that's actually headquartered in my town. Um, and I first bought shares of it in my Roth IRA um, at $162 a share. And It's now at $230 per share, and I bought those shares earlier this year, so it's up 42% for the year. And the reason I was able to figure out that it would ultimately be a good investment for me is because I just figured out how insurance companies work, and I noticed that theirs was unusually low risk and had a lot of growth opportunities. And the only thing really to it is that it's cyclical because it has to do with real estate. And so then I realized, well, once interest rates start getting cut, they're going to have more business, and they'll go back to growth. So um, it took a few years of just looking at a bunch of different things, studying before I could make a very easy conclusion. I wish I had bought more sooner because there are some things where I have been right, but I haven't gotten behind it enough. And then I could have grown a lot more money than I did. Of course, you don't beat yourself up too much for that. That just happens. Um, but
Well, I want to bring it back to the community,
yeah,
like the larger community thing. And every time you talk about stocks, I think in my mind, I do the same thing with people. Everything he's talking about companies and so I do with people. I figure out which people to invest in, which people to withdraw investment from, which people to reduce my investment. And in building community, I think it's important of having a sense of what people you want in your community and what people you don't and which people are risk managements, et cetera. So can some of that be applied to community building?
no, absolutely. Because when you look at a business, I mean, what is a business? It's a group of people doing something to make money, and the business is only as good as the people that make it happen. And so you have to get to understand a business like you would a person. I look at it like really as the same. Like when I feel good about a business as an investment, it's the same way that I feel good as a person as an investment. Like if I'm going to put my trust in a person that I know is going to do well, I feel that same way with a stock. And if I don't feel good about it, it's for the same reasons. It's shifty management, a willingness to do things that are dangerous or risky. Um, those
And
things,
and
I
you're
think,
looking at like individuals in the business or like the sum aggregate
yeah,
of the decisions of the
individuals,
individuals.
yeah, it's just because there are some businesses that just show that like they are very cavalier with their money. They just don't seem to be afraid of blowing it on things that aren't important, that are unimportant. And we know people like that. Like it's even though people went to business school and get degrees to suggest that they would be, good with money. A lot of them still have the personality traits of people who are bad with money, and it could just be years before it finally catches up with them and causes some kind of disaster. Look at what happened with Enron, right? You remember that? How much you want to bet that there were warning signs among the individuals involved in the personal lives of the management of Enron at the time, right?
Would the
Um,
general public know that? Like, would that be something that a person like you would be able to take into account when you're analyzing it?
for some businesses, it'd be easier than others. Um, and you can often see it in terms of um, when you look at like what kind of details they think are important in just what they disclose about the business. So when they do like you can one thing a lot of businesses do that's very helpful, especially for people who may not know a lot about stocks, is they will have these PowerPoint presentations available on their website. They usually release updated ones every quarter. It basically coincides with their earnings announcements that give a basic rundown of how the business works, and then just the current financial situation and what their strategy is. And you can often tell by like what they choose to prioritize, how risky the business it is, or how serious it is, or how disciplined it is. Um, and um, and then if you're like me and you like to listen to the earnings calls, you can actually hear the management speak in real time with analysts who are asking them questions that they may not be ready for. And depending on how they handle the questions, you can tell if they're competent and they're honest, and if they know what they're doing. And it's the same as if like you were talking to a person and you ask them a question, and they can give a confident, informed answer or not. And
Or
so,
they could be like Kamala Harris in that interview.
and believe me, there are CEOs who fumble hard, and it's clear like this guy is clueless. And then there are folks who will not only answer it, but they will just go above and beyond and provide additional clarity and leave the analyst and of course the investors who are listening with a much better understanding of how the business works and why it's a good model. And in real life, if someone answers your question like that, we appreciate it, right? Like, how does this work, right? They can tell you the very basics of answering the question just so they can technically say they did it. And then they know what extra details to sprinkle in so that your understanding is much more rounded. And, you can probably um, do more than the simple answers to your question would have allowed.
So going back to community and the Nexus and all that
Mhm,
is
mhm,
there's probably some criteria on who. I mean, we not just anybody can show up and like I want to hitch my project up to this. So I mean, we talked about things like drive, commitment, creativity, um, consistency, that kind of stuff. There's certain qualities in a person that we would look for to be part of this
mhm,
extra layer of community we're trying to build, like this inner core. Um,
mhm,
those are some of the qualities I look for in potential. Well, I guess we could call them investors or people that want to
mhm.
participate in this project. Can you think of some qualities that you would add to that?
I'll just quote.
Conscientiousness is another one. Very high in conscientiousness.
I'll quote the three qualities that Warren Buffett stated he looks for when he hires. So the first is intelligence, the second is initiative, and the third is integrity. Now he thinks the third is probably the most important because if someone um, doesn't have integrity, then the first two will kill you, as he put it. If someone has no integrity, you want them to be lazy and dumb. Uh,
And how do you determine that? You watch their actions.
well, yeah, actions are
Say it, mean
probably the
it, do
best.
it. Do their words and their motivation match their actions?
Right. And so um if if the things people say are very evidently without much looking supported by what they do, then um I think that's a good sign. One, actions in themselves are evidence
Do
of
people do what they
initiative.
say they're going to do?
Oh, well, often they don't, right? We talked about the commitment issue, right?
Right.
So
But
um
that would be the question to answer when
right.
looking at actions.
And I would say that often people don't. And that's why we have like, a Pareto effect in many systems where 80% is produced by 20% of what the overall source is.
Mhm.
And for human beings, it's often because only 20% have, we'll say, well, if the two of the three that Buffett said, the initiative and the integrity, right? That's what commitment is. Commitment is the intersection of initiative and integrity. Maybe it doesn't require any intelligence, so you got to do that as well. But um, the first thing you got to do is be willing to do it, and then the second thing is you need to keep your word and follow through on something. And um, those are
I,
things I
I
think
I
when
think
you're
intelligence is less of a factor in this community because I think almost everyone that shows up here has a degree of intelligence that would qualify them to
yeah, I would
participate.
agree. I'd say most
So
people here
really,
are
it's
reasonably
that
intelligent.
initiative integrity thing, which is commitment. So we're
Yeah,
back to commitment as the key ingredient.
yeah. I don't think we need to filter much for intelligence. I think people who aren't intelligent are probably not very interested in this kind of stream. They probably
Right.
go and
They're
look for
going to
something
filter
else.
themselves out. And the
Yeah.
integrity, like the drama crowd, I see a lot of low integrity from. I think those are filtering themselves out too. So I kind of think even on the integrity front, um, it can be assumed more than not of a lot of people here. The fact that they've been able to demonstrate enough integrity to just not get kicked or blocked or banned,
Mhm.
because
Yeah,
there
and
is
I think
kind of
that
a gatekeeping system here.
yeah, and so I think I guess what we're saying is that initiative is the key ingredient that would probably we would more actively need to be looking for it
Yeah,
than the
and
other
and
two.
that's what I call intrinsic motivation. And it to me is that innate, like you either have it or you don't. And we just wait for the people that have it to show up.
I suspect. I also
Or
think there's
passion is another word I'd use for it.
I think there's some plasticity to it as well, which is that some people discover intrinsic motivation after they have failed enough for lack of it, and then begin to ask themselves, why do I fail? Or I'm tired of this. What do I do to change it? And then, um, and then they might show more initiative. Some people just, like you said, conscientiousness. I guess conscientiousness is the trait that yields initiative. Um, um, some people might naturally have that, and they don't need to be taught to have initiative. Some people will learn it with time, and then some people will never learn it. Um, Maybe what we're hoping to do is that we can start with the people who naturally have it, but then we can also discover the people who learn it over time, and maybe some of what we do will help people learn it,
Well,
where they
how
figure out.
are there practical ways to discover this edition, like to test? Because so far there's me and you.
Yeah.
I found me and I found you. Are there ways, if we think someone has it and they're interested, are there ways to kind of test that initiative level, like maybe
Yeah. So
games or activities or something?
I think that something like that is one of the great things about games is that they can still be educational. There are things, if we were to like have a game of Monopoly, I could teach about investing from the act of the game itself. Um, Things that will be directly useful when making decisions about actual investments. Um, and it's going to be the same mindset. But the great thing about a game is, um, if we go back to like psychology, um, one thing I said about like a paper portfolio is you don't have skin in the game, right? I use the word game, right? But when you're actually playing on something, right, and you want to win, you kind of do have skin in that game because you want to win. You don't want to be a loser, right? If you're a loser, then like Trump says, they are laughing at us, which I notice is a funny thing he says a lot. And but people like to win. The thrill of victory is great. Some people make whole career
I think
decisions
some people are
based on
more
their love of
motivated than
winning.
others to win, though.
Yeah,
Like
then
it's
there's
more of
that
a
too.
value for them. And Dobez is another guy. I thought there is a third, but his integrity and commitment is tied up with university right now, and he's putting it to very good use.
Yeah, so he's a potential. But I think games are a good example. So um, like my best friend, um, like if we go back to like the example of Mario Party, we were trying to get something going where we would play that more consistently, and we did a few games, and then he just could not make time for it anymore, right? And that's just
So
one of
it
the things.
was not as important to him as other things,
Yeah, I
whether
mean, he
through
had a good
necessity
time.
or desire.
Yeah, it's one of those. Well, one of the things in general as I've gotten older, my best friend and I have gotten older, is that it's just hard for him to stick with things. It's just for some reason he can't seem to do it. Something always comes up. He gets
Then
weighed down
that's not commitment.
by the monotony of life. Exactly. And so the people who are doing that, like let's say we do 10 game events, and there's one person who's there every single time. Clearly, they have initiative because they're doing it. They're following through.
That's how I
Some,
started my Zoom community during COVID. It was me and then one other girl would show up every day. We did morning coffee. She was there every single day. And eventually a
Mhm.
few more people showed up. And out of those people, two or three were able to show up consistently. We built like five or six people that were able to show up and keep it going for 24 hours throughout COVID.
Yeah, I would say right now, Lawyer Chick is showing early signs of a commitment with her channel. Um, I think more
What
time
are
will
you going
connect
off
here.
of? She's done one stream.
Well, she did it the other stream before that when it was like the test stream before she had to change channels, and then
Oh.
she's been creating shorts that she's uploading. So it looks to me like she's
So she's
alternating.
consistently producing some kind of content.
Yeah, I think we would need a longer period of time. So like look again in 3 to 6 months and see how consistently is she doing that.
So you make a good point. That's one way to do it is look at people's channel. Like what are they doing on their channel? Like Jack Talcott streams every single day at about the same time, 7 days a week. That's
Uh-huh.
consistency.
Right.
TML, the Machine Lies, streams 3 or 4 times a week consistently on the same day. He's been doing that for as long as I have. So things
Uh-huh.
like that would indicate consistency.
Exactly. Um, and again, it's if we connect to the stocks again, right? We can say, hey, why can't why did this stock go 10x in a decade or less? And you can look back at the history of the stock. It's already there. You can go ahead and look. And then with individuals, you can go ahead and look at their record. Especially we're talking about like other YouTubers. They have a history. That's what their channel is. It's all there.
Right.
It's the
That's
same
a good
type of
point.
analysis. And so when we look at stocks, we're going to essentially ask ourselves the same essential questions about this YouTuber that we would about the business of the stock that we'd be analyzing. It's really not that difference. We just got to
Machine
put a price
Lies
on it.
just messaged me to give me the link to his upcoming stream as I was talking. Let me drop that channel.
Okay. Let's see. I'm looking at a co- a
Hey, Mike.
comment here. The only investment he has is 100 euros in Bitcoin and Solana. Not less said, don't think about it analytically. Think about it in a flowery, poetic way, like a band of burning man in a submarine under the oceans of Europa.
I
Uh,
like the idea of how to
on the deep.
analyze channels and YouTubers, panelverse participants, whether they have a channel or not. Ways to identify which channels you want to affiliate with, which guests you want on your panels, which people you want in your chat and community. I think that's all. There's all potential for some analysis there to kind
Mhm.
of
Yeah, if
define
you want another
community better.
example
The
of an
cult.
investment I made that was very much based on an individual, I temporarily had invested in shares of Pershing Square. Pershing Square is a hedge fund that is run by Bill Ackman. And my decision to invest in this was based on listening to Bill Ackman talk, getting a feel for what he was like temperamentally, the way he thought about investments, and how he had learned from his failures. And so I decided that um, he was probably going to be um, a good investment going forward. I actually, ended up making money on the shares of those funds, and I sold and moved the profits into something else. But that was actually one example where it really was just based on the individual of as a manager and had very little to do with the price. With it being a fund, the price is largely gonna reflect what the value of the portfolio is, but kind of trusting um, how he was going to work with it going forward. And um, you know, listening like him speak for sometimes 30 minutes or an hour about mistakes and why the things he did were mistakes and the things he could have done to catch it was very insightful. And it was almost like he just had a YouTube channel.
Yeah, I was
He
about
appeared
to
on
say
different.
like that things like viewership, people that show up at the channel regularly, like that kind of stuff shows consistency and interest and initiative on the part of the viewers and the audience, the participants.
Mhm. Yeah, and so and the fact that he's
Like
regularly
not
willing to
lost.
appear and sort of put his face out there and be subject to public scrutiny, for the validity of his strategies as well, I think is interesting in a way that a lot of investors aren't necessarily. Um,
Not lost. What keeps you coming back? Because you're one of the most committed, consistent viewers I have, I think. And we're not even your like the content here is not even your content. So something keeps you coming
yeah,
back here.
yeah, you've even like
Maybe as a consultant, you're definitely good for marketing research.
yeah, and Not Laws has even um, what super chat or tip you or whatever a few times. He says we're
Oh,
interesting, genuine
interesting,
people.
genuine,
Okay,
and evil or brainwashed, but still, at least we're still interesting and genuine. Okay, that helps.
I think as Not Loss has gotten to know me more, he understands a lot more of the subtleties of my views on things, especially the political stuff.
You think he does?
Yeah, yeah. I think at first it can sound like I'm just saying a bunch of um some as people might put it right wing talking points, but I think he understands more the story of why I view things the way I do. Um and actually earlier on Kane's channel, I was talking there. Um Notlaws had agreed completely with, I believe it was uh, how I interpreted the Meiji Restoration in Japan, which, if you want to know what that is, Google it. But I basically said I think it might have been um, one of the only truly progressive monarchist movements that we've ever seen in history. And I clarified, I meant progressive in more of like a Theodore Roosevelt sense of the word. And he said maybe it wasn't exactly that, but it was the conversation around that he said he agreed with me
Oh
completely.
yeah,
It
he
was
would
interesting.
definitely geek out on something like that.
Yeah. And so um, the analysis of what happened to the pre-major restoration particularly.
What
Okay.
about something? Because you have me thinking of like what is inspiring current commitment? Like whatever commitment level we have now, what is generating that? I wonder if some kind of survey, like audience survey or something, would
Yeah, that
be in
actually
order.
would probably be very helpful. It'd have to be pretty open-ended. So it's not like I don't think we could have bulleted answers that they check and then they all stack in a spreadsheet. We might have to, do like a short answer thing that they could all write a bunch of different responses.
Yeah, yeah. I think
So
getting something like that out would help.
Dolbez, were you there in the change stream when we mentioned Napoleon briefly? Because it seems like you're referencing the same conversation, but I don't remember seeing you there. And WASF said Ray Dalio is weird. I agree. Ray Dalio is kind of weird. Um, I
But
think Ray Dalio.
does he have integrity and initiative, and does he inspire trust and confidence and commitment?
So Ray Dalio
Because
definitely
I'm
has
weird
commitment,
too.
and he definitely has intelligence. I don't know enough about his character. His character is sort of uh, I don't know what to make of him. He seems to be kind of um, he has a negative view of a lot of things. Um, in terms of like the way things are going financially. Um, oh, Lopez, you talk about Napoleon in reference to progressive monarchist movements. I can kind of see that a bit. I think the Meiji Restoration was a much clearer example because Japan was definitely stagnating, and they were just it was is set in old ways that made no sense, and it was just because the Tokugawa shogunate didn't want to step down, but uh, I could. He was definitely he was definitely a populist monarchist movement. There's a reason that he was called the Emperor of the French rather than Emperor of France. It was intended to be a more populist title, and he certainly implemented some reforms that essentially, codified what much of the revolution wanted to get codified up to that point. Anyway, that tangent aside, um, oh, Ray Dalio, yeah, I was talking about him. I don't know what to make of him. He's kind of thinking that like we're in a debt cycle with the U.S. There's this long-term debt cycle that power powers go through all the time. First, it was like the Dutch, and then the British, and now it's the U.S. And they all have these moments where they are the leading economic power. Their currency becomes the reserve currency of the world during their prosperity. They start borrowing a lot of money to fuel their consumption, their placated population, and then they can't keep up with it, and then they have a decline. Their debt cycle has kind of a bust, and then even if they don't become completely destitute, um, they cease to be the world economic leader. And so the Dutch did that, and they went through theirs, and became the British, and then the pound was the global reserve currency, and now the U.S. has taken that mantle, and now we're going through the same thing where we have we're on like the other end of the long-term debt cycle, which you've heard people talk more about the size of the national debt in this election season, much more than in previous elections. Because the interest alone has exceeded the size of the military budget, and that's a first. And so um, that's why we have so much inflation. And so Ray Dalio is kind of just saying he does like kind of this doom and gloom stuff about it. He just thinks, oh, it's all gonna fail kind of thing. He's not really like an investor in the sense that he tends to pick individual investments. He's more of like a portfolio manager. Like he's a guy who believes in balancing and avoiding like trying to get a lot of non-correlated assets to like avoid sudden losses in a crash. So for a long time, he actually was able to construct a fund that had essentially the average return of the market without any of the zigzags in it. It's the same average, which is okay, but it's in the long term, it's the same average. So it doesn't really do anything except make it look less scary to people who might be investors in the fund.
The planet is not going to die, not lost. Quit. This is mental health. This is you adopting some kind of future narrative that you think is some kind of apocalyptic. It's the same as the early Christians. It's climate eschatology. Okay, I guess you too.
Do you actually think that, or
See what climate
are you trolling?
eschatology does to your brain. They're both climate. I was gonna say nuts. I'll say activists, advocates.
Now, I mean, I generally agree with that, laws. I mean, without the a healthy planet, I mean, no
Yeah,
investments
but I
mean
don't think
anything.
we're at that point at all.
Um,
Where we're suddenly
I
not going to exist.
and at this point, I just don't feel like I understand the planet science enough to say how close we are to anything like that. Uh,
Well, not
and in
lost
general,
to
like,
us.
and I also think that like the climate just changes sometimes. Like we've had warming and cooling periods throughout documented human history, and these have had devastating effects. Right? We talked about in Kane's stream how the cooling that occurred during the late Roman era made it harder for agriculture um, to function in Northern Europe, and this forced Germanic peoples to migrate south and invade the Roman Empire because they certainly
But
weren't
there's
going to stick
this
around.
fear that if they don't somehow re-engineer society by a certain deadline, we're doomed. And it's that climate catastrophism that
Mm.
I don't understand or subscribe to. It seems more mental health related than reality based.
Well, I think Elon sort of raised an interesting point in that we are every year mining millions of tons of carbon from the earth and just releasing it into the atmosphere where it stays, and there are likely long-term consequences of that, and the earth does seem to be warming as a result. And so,
But I don't think we're at the precipice of doom.
well, we're certainly having to revise some of our hypotheses, or the ones that scientists have, because there are things about 2024 that were predicted that haven't been as bad as thought. I don't think it's not worth taking into account or planning for. I think it's a good thing that a lot of companies, without regulatory pressure, have started to reduce their carbon footprint, suggesting that they see um, the
Companies in China
preservation.
and India?
Most talk about American companies. I don't think the
Oh,
China and
because,
India are
well,
thinking about that as much. Uh,
if the whole
but
world's not going to do it, how is it going to work?
I mean, no, it's the whole. If the whole world isn't going to do it, doesn't matter. But um, it's still an improvement on nobody at all doing it. Um, so,
Oh
but
my God, you think the world's going to turn into Venus? That's crazy, Nala. See the kind of crazy stuff I'm talking about that you think. We're not going to turn
oh,
into Venus anytime soon.
so if we turn into Venus, will there finally be enough women for the rest
I'm
of
out of
us?
here. If we turn into Venus, I'm out of here. This planet's already Venus enough.
But yeah. So WASF, you were saying that you do think I'm a secret Trump supporter trying to convince people not to vote so that Trump wins. I mean, because I mean, I just think that if I wanted Trump to win, I would encourage people to vote for him,
Or
especially
is
because
North Carolina considered a swing state?
yeah, but I think Trump's going to win. I mean, he won
Oh,
the last two times. I think the Democrat is going to win for governor, and I think the Republican is going to win for president. Because our Democratic candidates here are not the kind that are, we'll say, alienating to middle voters in North Carolina, like a lot of the nationwide Democratic candidates are. Um, I mean, if you want um, my true opinion of Trump, um, WASF, um, I think if he does anything to help America, it'll be by accident. And I think um, he shows better signs of being able to have a successful administration this time than last time. I think last time he handled a lot of domestic things incompetently. maybe he's learned some lessons from
But he
that. But
wasn't a dictator. We've had 4 years of him, and he didn't destroy
no,
democracy, and
I,
nor was he a dictator. So I don't know where this hysteria comes from.
I'm mostly just talking about whether or not he'd be a good president, right? I'm not worrying about the dictator thing so much.
Well, that is the narrative that's out there. I
That's their
saw it
narrative.
today in
So
social media, in
I,
fact.
I'm not convinced that Trump would
General
be a
Kelly
good
came out
president.
saying that he's going to rule as a dictator if you elect him,
Um,
like he didn't for 4 years. Why would you come out and try to convince us now, against the evidence of our own eyes and ears, that he's suddenly going to be ruled as a dictator?
Yep. But to be more thorough in my thoughts of Trump, I don't think he actually presents a solution to many of the things that people want him to do. I think he's just so chaotic, and that he has made the brand of the Republican Party so hard to
No, they're
define now.
not. Hang on, I can't let not laws get away with this lie. No, they're not. I've seen the chart, the graph, that map of the countries that are putting the most carbon out. And China and India are the top polluters.
Okay. Um, are you still going to address that, or
No, go ahead. I'm going to look
okay?
for that map.
Um, and so I think the Trumpian Republican brand is vague, so vague because of how unpredictable Trump is, that a lot of middle voters, it's like a Rorschach test for the hopes of middle voters. And this is an advantage Trump has in swing states that Democrats don't. Because when people don't feel good about Democrats, it's often in a way of, I don't think you're going to follow through. Like, so Kamala can say she supports this or that, and people will be like, yeah, right, you take corporate money, you're going to do this instead. People are so when people are feel uncertain about Kamala, it's not in a way that helps her. But when people are uncertain about Trump, it's in a way that helps him, because they see him capable as just, well, he might say this, he might negotiate this. He's willing to try anything. They see it as sort of more of a creative uncertainty with
Yeah,
Trump.
yeah, I do
And
too.
I I see that on some things, but not nearly as many things as people want. And I think the really important thing to do in American politics is to get money out of the system. And if Trump wanted to pressure Republicans across the country to do that, he could. Technically, the president cannot do anything to amend the Constitution, but he can use the bully pulpit, which he is very effective at doing, to influence Republican politicians across the country to support such an amendment. And I also don't think it would be very hard to find some Democrats, at least enough to get such an amendment passed to get money out of politics. So um, um, he hasn't done that, and I don't know if it's because he hasn't thought of it, or if he simply doesn't care, because he himself is a wealthy person who has made donations to candidates and probably likes having that advantage and wants to keep that advantage for his children who will inherit his estate. Um, I also don't think that. I think that when Trump goes away, the Republican Party will probably go back just to being the corporate party of Reagan and just have two corporate parties. And um, I'm not really convinced that Trump represents a long-term solution. This is why I didn't vote for him. So if you want um, a more negative appraisal of Trump, I think I've spoken more positively about him on geopolitical things. That's the thing. I don't think he really assists um, anything that's not working here domestically very well. Um, there are certain things he'll do better than Democrats, and there are certain things Democrats will do better than he would. I actually think Hillary Clinton would have been a better executive than he proved to be. Um, and now that he's had a term, he's more experienced, so he'll probably be
Here you go,
more
not
accomplished
lost.
this time. Um, Now, as far as what WASF said, not voting is risky. Um, I would say, yeah, it's the nature of all of this is risky. Um, I think, yeah, Busker, I think he's trying to say is risky, and maybe
And
referencing
but
the
the
fact
one
that,
I just showed was 2024, not lost. And
yeah,
this link you sent me is a paywall. I can't even access it. So if you think China is way better than any of us, we're not looking at the same data. The U.S. and
uh,
China are the two top countries contribute. If you think that's contributing to climate change, we and China are the two top countries doing it.
Yeah. I think another thing
Hey,
that's worth clarifying as well, the WASF, is that I don't vote because I don't see my role as an individual in the process anymore. But that doesn't mean that other people don't have a role, right? So it's just it's me and looking at my connection to the rest of the world. It makes sense for me not to vote. That doesn't mean it doesn't make sense for other people not
hey,
to vote.
if y'all want me making decisions for the rest of y'all, I don't mind. Just
Yeah.
I'm voting, so you're at the mercy of what I decide. If you trust me that
Zolda
much,
said
I'm
a
flattered.
lot of people are voting for Republicans, not necessarily for Trump himself, but the European like coalition he has formed. What's your thought on the whole coalition? Are you talking like basically his administration that will consist of JD Vance, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., and Elon Musk? Is that what you're meaning?
Let's see. Wikipedia is showing.
Okay.
Hang on. Percent of.
I feel better about that coalition because again, I think that's a big part that will make him a better executive in the second term. He did not have an administration ready to go because he thought he would lose, and now he has an administration ready to go. And I think these are probably more competent and dependable people. I think he was getting a lot more essentially sort of Reagan era corporatist plants in his administration. That's why there was so much turnover in it, because he didn't know who else to appoint things. And it's just interesting that so many of the people in his alliance right now are former Democrats. Um, and so I really don't know what to expect from that. I also know that, it could be a lot of Trump is just bombast and, he's only, that what you see is only skin deep. It isn't necessarily what you get. There's again, he's unpredictable. And for a lot of folks, it's a Rorschach test for their hopes. But, when I look at it from like a risk management perspective, I want some more certainty. So there's a reason I don't vote for Trump. I don't think he has clearly established himself as um, somebody who's going to do enough of the right things that he's worthy of the job. And then of course, I don't see how it's connected to me, right? So even if I could feel that he's clearly established himself, then I have to see that connecting to me, and is it my role to play to get behind him if he's made that case? And um,
Well, not
so
loss per capita. The chart I'm looking at shows Saudi Arabia and the Middle East way above the U.S.
yeah, but WSF, you are right that voting, not voting, whatever decisions someone makes during an election, there's risk in that. There's a risk of electing a certain side and giving them power, and there's a risk of uh, standing aside. We don't get to live in a life without risk. We are always actually faced with risky decisions. Like there's not making a decision is the same as making a decision.
Hey, Buster.
Um, and so
How
it
you
just depends
doing?
on what you think the asymmetry is between the risk and the reward. Um, I worry that if I vote for a side that I think has problems and hasn't strongly made a case for why they deserve a position, that I am rewarding them for inadequacy. And over time, that can stack up to be a big disadvantage. So I'm worried about that long-term risk, much of which I think has already materialized.
I'm a
But I
little
just
more
don't want to see it
practical.
materialize more.
My mission is to stop DEI and keep speech free.
Amen to that.
Hey, what's up?
Not too much, man. Just chiming in just to see how you guys are doing. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
How you feeling after those McDonald's fries?
Oh my God, I'm ready for more. I'll probably go get some more. Maybe later this week or next week, so I could figure out about the chocolate ice cream.
Yeah, I just saw this one guy's stream where he showed how McDonald's had lots of sales because of that thing he did that Trump
Well,
did.
what is your opinion of McDonald's, Joe? When you researched it, did Trump give it a boost, or is the E. coli going to cancel that out?
Um, I don't think Trump really affected it much, but
No, they showed this
um,
graph how it kind of like they sold a lot of food because of
Well, in terms of like I don't
Maybe
think Trump
short
really
term, but
impacts.
yeah, they sold a whole lot of food.
That's because of the E. coli, not loss. I just read the article today.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
E.
E.
coli.
coli is like Chipotle
Bad
had a
timing
similar
on Trump's
problem.
part.
Yeah, Chipotle had a similar problem back in the 2010s when an E. coli contamination
I remember
occurred
that.
and their
Yeah.
stock
All
went
right.
way down. But nobody died in that case. In this case, somebody died. Um, so that's the issue there.
It
Man,
happened.
good thing I just got French fries yesterday.
Hmm.
Yeah, fries are pretty much safe except for, like I wouldn't want to eat those every single day. I think that would be like bad, but once in a while is okay.
What? What? I thought it was their quarter pounders. Isn't that beef? They have pigs in their quarter pounder.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, the frozen meals that say spaghetti with meat sauce are not, it's not beef, it's pork and beef.
But a quarter pounder should be, huh?
Yeah, and even especially if they're saying it's 100% beef. I mean, I don't know if they still do, because I think I remember them saying that.
I think so. Let's see. Features a quarter pound of 100% fresh beef. So that wouldn't be pigs, not less.
That's right. But like a whole lot of blended cows. I mean, that's the
Is it cow
official
paste like the chicken nuggets?
kinda. I think when you think about it, like they're using a lot of cows to make a whole bunch of meat. Just kind of
Yeah,
makes
those French fries were over $5. Yes, this is he's right about that. $5 for that. I could buy like a whole lunch for $5 at the grocery store.
Yeah, I thought those were overpriced a bit. Man,
They were worth it.
what wasn't a large that was that much?
Hmm.
That
And
was
Friday is free Friday with the app. I'm just not sure I want to put McDonald's app on my phone yet.
I hear you. Yeah, I haven't eaten there in quite a while. That's something I stay away from these days.
From Monkey. I hated McRib. The only thing good about McRibs was the
Oh
pickle.
God, that made me fucking
It was
throw up.
like a pressed. You could even tell when I worked at McDonald's, the McRib was popular. We'd have to get the patty. You could tell it was like a press board. You could even see, looking at the frozen patty, that it was meat
Yeah,
just
yeah,
pressed into a shape.
yeah, and it's all processed and oh God.
So, looking at what Notlaw said, the value menu is actually helping them. They've seen increased traffic at their stores since they started introducing the value menu. We'll have to see their latest quarter's results to get an idea of how that helps them, like what it actually meant. But it does seem to be working. McDonald's is, as a business, is um, pretty well positioned to offer value options to its customers. It enjoys pretty good margins. So if there's a time where they need to squeeze a bit to keep their customers and expand market share, such as like when there's a bunch of inflation, they're pretty well positioned to do that. Yeah. So I mean, it could definitely be argued, not less, that they could have lower prices given the kind of profit margins they have. But they price as much as customers are willing to pay, and they don't go lower than that because it doesn't make sense for them to do that. Um, if you could make something for $3 and still be profitable, but people will buy just as much at $4, then might as well price it at $4. And if people want to retreat, they can, stop doing that, and then McDonald's will price less.
Yeah, I'm gonna step out and then come back. All right.
Yeah. Like if I want to buy cheaper food, I just go to the store and I find cheaper food instead of going to McDonald's. It's like I haven't been to McDonald's specifically in a long time, but like when we're just talking about fast food in general, and that's what I do. Nothing forces people to go to McDonald's. If like ramen costs like $5, a bowl or whatever. And then we could start talking about price gouging. But when the avian flu happened, egg supply went down, egg prices went up. The cow Maine made a lot of money from it because they just had to raise their prices. And they also wrote off a lot of losses from the dead flocks, but they did make a lot of money on that. And then when the egg supply went up, they lowered prices again. I mean, this is how stuff works. Nobody had to buy the eggs. People paid more money for eggs. It's because they wanted the eggs that much. You don't have to eat omelets. Some people have their own chickens. They just lay their own eggs. A bigger problem too would be like, if rent were too high. But there are laws for rent controls. Like that's already on the books. And I would say actually, McDonald's does a lot to keep its prices low and competitive in the long run. Like the automated kiosks, are a cost saver.
What's up?
Hey, Mike.
Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, good morning.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing? Hey, Buster.
How's it going?
I just remember being young and always eating at McDonald's when we were younger, and it was a good value. I just think now it's just garbage. I think it's
Yeah, it tasted better. I remember that.
I haven't
you
eaten
know,
fast food in so long. I don't even
but
know
I
what it
don't
costs anymore. Taco
even
Bell used to
before.
be cheap.
Wendy's is ruined.
Do you remember, guys? Do you remember? I don't know if Joe does. Joe's a youngster. I don't know. I'm sure Buster, I think, is about around our age. You can go to Taco Bell and literally spend $5-6 and get
Yeah,
a bag.
Oh
Get
yeah,
a bag
Yeah.
of food, like a bag of food.
they
You're
had a
like,
99-cent menu.
like in the early
Like half their
2000s,
menu was 99-cent items.
most
the
people.
tacos are like $2.50 now, and the
For one
amount of
taco,
meat.
I
Yeah,
could make
yeah.
my own tacos at home for like about probably twice that.
You got to learn how to cook. I cook. I made meatloaf the other night. I made spaghetti before that with the meatballs. I'm telling you, if you learn how to cook, you're going to save so much money. Eating out is.
It's talking about risk management. Having me in a kitchen is very poor risk management, both for myself and for the kitchen.
Well, I told you before, when you hit it big on YouTube, you'll get a personal chef. You'll have a personal chef that will come in and they'll just cook for you.
Man.
What do you want tonight, sir? I want this, this, and this.
I'll be happy if I can hit it big enough to just start affording DoorDash again.
That's it. But it's so out of control. I told you about, I think you heard me. The guy went to Jollibee, which is a chicken place, and ordered one chicken thigh, and it was $5.
Jesus, Mary and Joseph.
People are paying it though, right?
That's sick.
But I do believe there's going to be an influx in people not eating out anymore. I do believe they're going to crash the eating out thing.
Yeah, what is the restaurant industry doing since COVID? Between isolation and the prices.
So a lot of restaurants went out of business in COVID because
Yeah.
they didn't have the resources to survive the lockdowns, right? And so that's one thing that happened. Or if they didn't go out of business, they have had significant cuts. So where it
I know
was,
many personally.
some restaurants did better. So major fast food companies like McDonald's ultimately did better. They gained market share from it. Domino's
Good for
gained
them.
market share because more people started ordering for delivery in the lockdowns. And so and what often happens with these companies is they permanently gain customers as a result. It doesn't just become a temporary adjustment. It's, we like their food now. We're going to keep shopping with them when the lockdown ends. And so
Look at all the good that the lockdown did for everyone. Now there's going to be a bunch of obese people.
Well,
there's that.
so mid COVID, I had massive knee surgery. I did. So I had massive knee surgery. I had complete reconstruction. So I can barely move, walk. You know, I mean, I can, but I'm not going to be in the kitchen cooking something, which sucks for someone who loves to cook. And I was ordering out all the time. And my go-to was always Papa John's. I fell in love with Papa John's pizza. Like, it was so good. And they have wings, they have all this other stuff. But looking back, it was very unhealthy to eat that crap. It was just crappy, high sodium, salt. It's not good for you. And I actually gained weight. Once I started cooking, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry. There's better pizza out there than Papa John's, man.
I'm sorry, bro. It was my favorite.
Well, I mean, but is
love
any pizza like a pizza diet healthy?
Well, traditional pizza, traditional margarita from Italy, or traditional pizza. It's thinner. It's not as, it doesn't have like all this crap on it. It's more like focaccia, which is basically just bread with sauce on it, a little bit of cheese.
But you're not gonna get that at Pizza Hut or Pizza.
No. I'm telling you, man, that stuff, that stuffed crust with cheese. With extra cheese on it, with the garlic dipping sauce. I'm just like, I look like from the guy, the fat bastard from the movie Austin Powers. Yeah,
heart attack pie.
But the whole point is once, and I was immobile, so I couldn't really go out. I could not actually. I was in a full leg cast, so not a cast. It was a brace with the hinges, so I couldn't drive. So if I had to go somewhere, someone had to drive me, and I didn't have a lot of people to drive me around because my kids are out of state. So I was doomed into ordering food.
Ooh.
But what I'm trying to say is, I think when you order out this fast food, it's not good for your body. Once I started cooking for myself again, I lost weight. I felt better. My stress went down. I just think fast food is not good for you. That's my whole point of my rant. I just don't think it's good for you.
I think that's pretty much accepted, but it doesn't stop people from eating.
You guys got like Thai food, Thai curry.
Thai curry.
1 hour, 20 minutes. Well, 1 hour, 18 minutes. Now.
1 hour, 18
1
minutes.
hour, 18 minutes. But I may be like 5-10 minutes late.
Okay. Well, I'll
Because
start
I'm still running around like a chicken with my head cut off. With picking up kids.
Don't
grocery
rush.
store.
Don't do any. Don't put yourself in danger or anything. I'll keep the show going.
Well, I mean, it really won't take me that long. But I'm just saying. I may be late, but I'm going to try to be on time. Because I heard what you were saying. I like to I'll do shit with people, but I don't want them to fuck up my time, my plan shit. So I'm just giving you a heads up. I'm going to try to be on time.
I appreciate it, but I don't want you to stress or worry over it. And
I think and getting back to food, I think the healthiest diet is the Mediterranean diet. If you guys get into like chickpeas and olive oil and pita.
I love Mediterranean food.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I love fucking Mexican food, man.
It's good too. It's really good. Really good.
Rice and beans, shit like that. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not Laz, what a wild one you are.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of women he's talking to. It's amazing how accommodating they are for him.
But the Mediterranean diet, it's really good. It's really heart healthy, and it's good food. It's a lot of I don't know if you guys, it's hard to cook. It really is. Like to get the chickpeas and mash them and do all this work.
I've made my own hummus before. I still prefer restaurant hummus.
Now, my favorite. I said I like deer. I love venison, but I think really, really good lamb, like the Mediterraneans and of course the Israelis. The Jewish people. Lamb is really big, and lamb is really, really big in Italy. It's really big because there's a lot of lambs. Yeah, it's really big. So they eat a lot of lamb, and it's funny because I was talking to a friend of mine, right, and he's Middle Eastern, And he goes, a lot of you Sicilians are Middle Eastern, right? You know that, right? And I'm like, because we like the same foods. We do. We like the same cultures. We like the. So I think a
Do
lot of
you have
us are
Middle Eastern?
apparently for me. We have Moorish blood in our family, so we have Moorish
That's
blood.
kind of Middle Easternish, North
It's
African.
African. It's African. Yeah, but there are some Sicilians that will have
Like a
Spanish
fellow.
blood. Yeah, yeah, and it's funny. It's like, man, I'm Moorish. That's crazy, But yeah, the Moors were really, really old school
Maybe they meant
travelers.
Moorish. You just
Moorish.
misheard.
Look up
Moorish.
Moorish. It's
Yeah, I know. I
basically.
know what the Moors is.
Yeah. So and that's why some Italians look like me, are darker, and some Italians, like my mother, are blonde hair and blue eyes because she was from the top. So she had Swiss
What's the
blood.
top? Oh, you mean north?
Yeah, going all
The
the way
top
up
of
to
the
Italy.
boot?
Yeah, all the
Oh,
way to the top. We were all the way
okay.
to the bottom. That's why they say Tapuzzi. They say we stink. Like, they put their nose up
I
at
didn't know that.
the
No, I
at the
didn't know.
Sicilians. Yeah.
What do you think about Rome?
Rome is interesting. I think Rome, like, what's really the premise of the question? What do I think about the whole ideology of it? Like, what's the whole?
I don't know. It came up today in a conversation. How that meme about men think about the Roman Empire?
Mhm. When I look at Rome, I look at a bunch of rich fat cats who basically had slaves doing their labor. I do believe that.
Who
I
wouldn't
believe.
want that?
I don't know.
Rome was
I
living the
mean,
dream that everybody in
yeah,
their hearts secretly
yeah.
wishes they could be living.
And then the all of the fighting, in the stadiums. Oof.
Yeah, that
Like
was a little barbaric.
like the movie,
But
the
then the
movie,
Elizabethans had bear baiting.
yeah,
Day doors.
the movie Gladiator is actually factually true. They would make people fight each other to the D word,
Mhm.
to the end. They would make people fight, and like that's just
Savage
that is
for
so
entertainment,
inhumane.
and it was
So
free too
basically,
to the public.
yeah. So basically, Italians are a-holes. They're just jerks. I don't know what else to say. Like, I would never do that, but
That's some
that was
impressive self-awareness.
that was from the top. That was the Italians that were part German, part Swiss. All those from the top. And it's really weird, that the Pope has only Swiss guards. It's just strange, and so
Oh,
I
I
don't know
didn't
when
know
you.
this. Yeah, well,
Yes,
Dolbez is. Oh no, that's Swedish. Never mind.
yeah,
Well, I do know
Welcome.
why he has Swiss guards.
yeah. Let
Because
us know. Let
it's
us know.
a German banker, probably like the richest man in Europe at that time, and estimated like
Mhm.
$400 billion in present money. Like I think it was Jonathan Fugger or something. That guy, he
Fugger, yeah.
basically
Mhm.
set up a lot of the corruption in the Catholic Church that led to the Protestant Reformation because he ran his business empire, and
Mhm.
he did a lot of stuff. But one of the things he did was that he hired Swiss mercenaries to protect the Pope because the Swiss were the best mercenaries in all of Europe,
Mhm.
and so it wasn't really excluding or picking the Swiss for anything other than their skill. The Swiss were throughout the Renaissance and Enlightenment the best mercenaries in Europe. Like if you needed hired soldiers, you would get some Swiss people because they.
What made them so good?
Uh,
I think I'm sorry, Dolbos. I think their training and their dedication. The Swiss are so dedicated to the Catholic Church. And Dolbos, tell me if I'm wrong. It's almost like they're almost elevated, but the Swiss can fight. There's a reason why Germany never messed with Switzerland. There's a reason why, because the Swiss can fight. Go ahead, Dolbos. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's definitely the underlying spirit of it. But another point is also technology. They were really early in the adoption of
Early
like
what?
a sort of formation and the way you use pikes to prevent the cavalry charges of the nobility. So they were an easy way of countering basically nobles, aristocrats. And so, if the enemy has it, your horses are shit. They're not worth anything. So you got to counter infantry to counter the Swiss. So you can hire some Swiss. Like, there's plenty of stories where both sides of civil wars just hire Swiss mercenaries to counteract each other, because if only one side has them, you lose because your cavalry is just now redundant. It's just dead weight.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of Italians. You're right. No, you're exactly right. The Swiss were. Look at Swiss banking. Swiss are the best bankers in the world. They're very intelligent, and I want to say they're one of the only countries. I think Luxembourg as well. That's a very tiny country. It's like the smallest. I think Luxembourg next to Vatican City. I think Dolbo is the smallest country there is. But during World War II, they were never affected. Like Germany didn't mess with them. Like they just left them alone, because I think the Swiss were smart enough to funnel money for both sides.
Oh yeah,
because the Switzerland is one of the richest countries next to Monaco. Where is it? Luxembourg, Monaco.
Well, okay. The thing is, when you talk about rich, both in total terms and per capita, you can't really include microstates, because their whole economy is based around importing rich guys and have low taxes. Switzerland is probably the richest country per capita, like just based on their own productivity. Basically in a competition with Norway, but Norway has lost for the past like 5-6 years. So they are currently just undisputed number one, most productive. Well, it's strange to say productive, because that can mean a lot of things, but in this context, like just pure economic output, like doesn't mean what you believe if you should have more resource extraction or not. Like in pure economic output, they are the most productive per capita, excluding a lot of these microstates that are cheating, basically.
I got you.
Oh, by the
Joe,
way, guys,
what do you think?
I need to get going. I was going to tell you guys. This is actually a fascinating topic, I will say, but I do have something to do at 6 my time, so it's almost an hour out. So yeah, it was good talking. Good to see you all again. And Jeff and I are going to continue to do these streams twice a week. So
we'll be here Saturday again, same time.
Nice.
Take care, gentlemen.
All right, Joe. Go get that Tinder date. Joe. Get that Tinder date.
I will.
Okay, Roadaway, this is your warning. Keep it.
I have something I gotta point out, because you when you talked about the brutalities of Rome, you specifically put that on like the Northerners. Like to some extent, yes, in the beginning it was the center and north that ran the early Roman Republic and Empire, but they weren't Germans, they weren't Italians or Swiss, because this was before the Germanic migrations that became those tribes. This was the old Etruscans and the actual Latins. And the big difference is that the north of Italy were native Italians for the most part, part of the early Indo-European migration into Italy, whilst the south was made up of a lot of ancient Greek colonies. So probably the richest area in all of Italy up until Rome was Syracuse, a city at the most southern tip of Sicily, which was a Greek republic. So the whole southern boot and Sicily is often called Magna. How do you pronounce it? Magna Graecia or Graeca or something. Big Greece, the other Greece.
Graeca,
so,
yeah.
You can split it into, those from the south. They are culturally, or not culturally necessarily, because that has changed a lot, but like ethnically and in their blood, it's native Italian, of course, but then a lot of Greek, and later a lot of Arab, Moorish, and Bedouin, immigration and invasion, you can say, in both measures. Whilst the north had only German invasions and immigrations, really.
In my opinion, I think and this is my opinion only, I think the Italians are some of the biggest mixed, civilizations. Like there were so many conquerors, there were so many explorers, there was so much mixing of the blood. being right in the middle of all these different countries and being right across from Africa, all the Libyans and the Moors, and so Italians are confused. They are like but we look different. Like Mike, I have a family member who has red hair. It's like, what the hell? Where did this come from? Where did this even come from? And then I'm darker, and then my mother's blonde and blue eyes.
Do
And then
Italians use that against each other? Like in the black community, they use like shades to determine a
well,
hierarchy.
this is the thing. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you guys this. How are, and this is only a question, how are Spanish people considered a minority, but Italians are not? If a Spanish person has, darker blood or something like that, and so does an Italian, so does an Italian. So why is one and one's not? So it's always confused me. It always has.
It's just the fact that all of Latin America is, Spanish, and so all the immigrants they had a connection to Spain. Like if you look at a map, I sent it to Jeff, I think, on Discord a few days ago, like a map of the American Bureau of Immigration's classification of white, and it's like all of the West, excluding Spain. Like they include Portugal, which has less Germanic blood and is often called, Portugal is often called.
Is that what determines whiteness? The Germanic blood?
Well, kinda. Well, okay. Whiteness, like if you're European, so if you either have the Southern European admixture or the Northern European, but like either way, the more Germanic or Slavic blood, the more white you will appear. You will still appear white if you have Greek or Italian blood, but not as much because it's not to the same extent. So yeah, you can look at Germanic blood as a good determinant for how white you will be. Yeah,
it's interesting. It's a great topic. I mean, race relations and things like that. No one's being.
I think it's just going to become less and less relevant as we enter.
Well, we're gonna keep mixing. We're gonna keep mixing and mixing. Like my kids are mixed. My children are mixed. I have. But the thing is that it's becoming more and more rare to look back at, like, someone says I have to, like, being Italian growing up, right? Being Italian, you had to only marry an Italian girl, right? You had to marry an Italian girl. You're growing up, younger. But what if that Italian girl is also mixed with something else?
Yeah.
And you are as well. So you're
Italian's not a race or maybe even an ethnicity. It's just a nationality.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's very tricky. It's very tricky. But they'll, like a Russian is always a white dude, right? No, but a Russian could be part, I want to say, when they go to Siberia, aren't they?
Yeah, they have the East Asian.
Yeah, they're like Asian.
That look almost white.
Yeah. So how, so it's just, I think we should get away from that, but I
think reality is always larger than the categories we come up to try to capture it.
You had an interesting question also earlier, Jeff, about if the difference in appearance between North and South Italians in Italy, of course. And I have an Italian friend, and I have actually asked him about this. Like in Italy, what is the difference between the North and South and culturally and all that stuff? And the main thing is people don't care if you look, Southern or Northern, because you can't just randomly appear Northern in the South, because there is a mixture there, even though you have more, like it's distributed, yes, but there is a mixture. But what's most important is, again, the culture. Like North and South Italy and Central Italy, honestly, you should split it into North, South, and Central, because Central was always the papacy, papal lands, and so that is distinct in its own way. But the North and South were very different, very different history. Like the South was in and out of Arab hands, Roman hands, so the Byzantines, like the Eastern Romans, Spanish hands for so long, and you have the mafia, and it was then a unified big kingdom, the Kingdom of Naples, which, under Spain and all that stuff, but it was more unified, plantation based. You can kind of say that the South Italy was a test bed for Spanish colonialization, because the structures they figured out worked for extraction of resources was first developed in southern Italy, which they then used further in Americas, just like how Portugal used Madeira, the island where Cristiano Ronaldo comes from, as a test bed for colonialism. And so South Italy has a very different history and culture from North Italy, which republics and trade empires and very city culture. Like North Italy probably had the strongest city culture out of any, probably since the ancient Greeks, and I don't think any culture to this day still has had or reached such a level of intercity competition and how you view the city and everything. There was so many. You even have like races for I have the highest tower. No, I have the highest tower. We got a golden statue. We got a golden statue. And then, of course, you have the big boys, the Genoese and the Venetians are competing for trade and colonial empires across all of the Mediterranean. And it's so different. And then you just have a theocracy in the center.
Because it didn't become a nation till recently anyway.
Yeah, technically 1860 something, but they took Rome and actually finally became Italy in 1871 or something.
What have either of you been to Italy?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was there a few years ago. I was mostly in the north, in Tuscany and Florence and Pisa. So I haven't been in the south. And I don't really have a view on the south because my friend, he's from even further north. He's like the really, really Germanic Italy, the one that the living standard is equivalent to France or Germany. The south is very southern European. In my opinion, if it wasn't for nationalism, if you just looked at pure sensibilities and logic, South and North Italy should be separate nations because they have so little in common. The languages themselves weren't originally one language. The language of every single city-state of the south, of the center, all diverged, but it was a project by the Sardinian Piedmont royalty who unified Italy to force the culture and language to become more and more similar. If you went back to then and you just ignore this sort of irrational push for nationalism, which I like nationalism. It is cool, but it is irrational. If you ignore that,
I think we still need nationalism.
Yeah, then it shouldn't really have been one nation. It should have been two, maybe even
it's very much.
They said about the U.S. too.
Yeah. But Dolbez, it's very much I think if putting that same theory, it's very much like Germany when you had East and West. It's the same country, but it's different dialects, it's different ideologies, it's different. So, Italy is
national boundaries are arbitrary. They don't always map onto culture. And
it's a confusing country, but everybody loves it because everybody loves Italian food. Everybody loves Italian people. It's just a confusing place.
What is y'all's favorite city?
Palermo.
Oh,
I'll say Florence, but honestly, there's some cities I don't know the name of, but they were tiny towns with 200 people up in the hills. Those are beautiful. And
they are.
And all the old country estates in Tuscany are lovely. The hotel we were in was an old country estate, just massive gardens and everything.
Hey, Jeff.
Another really pretty Dolbez, the Amalfi Coast. The Amalfi Coast is beautiful. It's all along the water. It's up in the mountains along the water. It's really beautiful.
Italy in general is a really beautiful place. It really is, and it's definitely one of the. It's at the center of Europe. It has a rich history. It's decently powerful. It's sort of underperforming in the power compartment, but that's pretty standard across history, so that's fine. And really good food. I mean, it is my favorite food, so it's difficult to beat that. And the people are lovely, both. Yeah, generally, it's a wonderful place.
One place I've never been to, which I'd love to go, is France. I've never been. I've had family members go to France. I heard France is amazing. I've never been there.
I haven't been. I have been to France, but it was when I was like 2 or 3, so I
Yeah.
don't count that at all. But I do. Again, I have 2 friends in France, but they aren't as open to cultural talk as my Italian friends. So I don't actually know much about France,
Yeah.
other than pan-European stereotypes, because France has been the boogeyman of Europe for 1,000 years. And
We
still
have
exists.
really.
Oh, oh yeah. Like at
Oh.
during the Middle Ages, France, like that tiny area, had more population
Well, our
than all
people
of
did
Russia.
leave for a reason, so I guess.
Yeah, like
Well,
no,
I think
France is a juggernaut, like the
I
enemy of
think
all.
France.
Were they just like the system back then, the dominant power?
I think
the
France was an
oppressor?
early. Yeah, I think France was an early powerhouse. It was an early powerhouse, so maybe that made rifts between other countries because
Not even
France.
early. It stayed a powerhouse.
Mhm.
Like it was the first powerhouse in Europe, and it stayed the main powerhouse of Europe up until German unification. And now it's taking its place again. Like now it is the dominant force in Europe because Germany doesn't have a functioning military. The British economy is collapsing. France is once again the leader of Europe, as they have been for what their 1,500 years of history. Like France is. It pains me to say this as a non-French person, but France is the natural leader of Europe because they have the most defensible borders in Europe. They have the most. The land is so fucking prosperous. It's perfect for cramming in a lot of people and mobilizing them. There's rivers navigable. There's all the resources you could ever need. The people are naturally industrious and they're also intense and productive, and they can do stuff. And the
Passionate.
leaders they produce, passionate. And the leaders they
That's
produce
why
are
people hate the French. It's starting to come clear now.
Well, let's just say let's put this out there. Let's put this on.
Anglo-Saxon people have always hated us.
Let's put this on the table. If there wasn't for the French, there'd be no America. There would be
Oh,
no
yeah.
America. The French came
Well,
to America's.
perhaps. There's a lot of factors.
No. We were gonna lose. We were gonna get killed
Yeah,
by
but
the Brits.
I'm not going to collapse all of American history into that one
But
reductive
if
narrative.
it
What's up,
wasn't,
Captain? You have any thoughts?
yeah.
Not yet, but
Oh.
I will.
Okay, well, let us know.
No, I will.
I'm going to go
But I
for
think-
about another half hour, and then
Okay.
I'm going to sign off because I have that thing with Leggy coming up too.
Remember, you guys ever watch that show? I think it's called John Adams. It was on HBO, where they show like him, like going through like the whole Parliament stuff and like meeting with the French and meeting with the Dutch and meeting with. I think it's
It's
called
like
John.
a mini series.
Yeah, it is. What's his name? The little guy. What's his name? John Adams on
Giamatti?
HBO. Yes. Oh my God, you got to watch that, dude. And it shows how he went around and basically negotiated. Basically the savior of the United States, because we were getting attacked by Britain bad, and the French eventually came in and came to our side. They did. So it's all history, If you're a history buff, if you like history, it's a good thing to watch. That's all. Yeah, I just like history. I like military,
I love
especially.
history. I was watching
Yes.
some of the American Revolution documentaries the other day.
Yeah, and I live in Virginia, and it's so rich in.
Oh, right.
this-
What do y'all have there? Is that where Monticello is and Mount Vernon and all that?
You got Mount Vernon,
Yeah.
which we
I went,
my son.
we visited that as a kid. I remember all that.
Yeah, we've been there.
Williamsburg.
Oh yeah, Colonial Williamsburg is the best. It is the best place to go.
It was neat.
It was. It is. But you have Civil War battlefields. You have Jamestown. Then, if you want to go further, you can go up to like the bigger fighting. But the Civil War, and people don't realize, in Richmond, Virginia, that was the Confederate capital. There's the Confederate White House there.
Oh,
which me and my son went to. We're like, this is crazy as crap. Like, this is like.
They didn't burn it down yet? They didn't get like
No,
dismantle it?
not at all. Not at all. Still
I
there.
might have to defend it again.
Yeah.
Hey, Amanda.
Yeah. It was it's wild, but there's so much history, like the American history in the Virginia area. There's just a lot of it.
I remember that. We went to DC and then we went to all the little historical spots in Virginia.
You got it, bro. That Confederate White House is so weird. They have everything roped off, and like where they used to sleep in the rooms, like it's like this. This is eerie, you know. But
Well, hopefully
it
we
is.
don't need it again.
Yeah. No. We're good. We're good. But it was to see these kind, and it's right next to VCU, the Virginia Commonwealth University Hospital, where my daughter went to college. It's right next door. So it's easy to park because we had a parking pass for the college. Because in Richmond, it's a nightmare to park. It's a nightmare. So go ahead, guys. Sorry.
I don't know if anybody was fighting for the mic.
Yeah, no, I think we gave it to you because you had
The mic,
something to say.
it's a mic.
You know, the mic
Yeah.
naturally caused the mic as you. Yeah, it
I
did.
can
They
turn it
don't
on
call
and
you
off.
Mike for nothing.
Yeah, that's right. I can carry a panel. But no, there's so much. And then if you get into, I don't know if you guys are really into like the Native American history. Virginia, North Carolina, places like that have a lot of deep history
not
and
what
Native American culture and stuff like
That
that.
would be indigenous, Mike.
We're not as interested as that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for correcting.
I say native too. I still call them
You're
Native
welcome.
Americans. Growing up, we were taught Indian, and then somewhere along the way, they switched it to Native American, and that's the one that stuck with me.
I say Native American. That's what
Indigenous sounds woke.
Well,
That's what I say.
they didn't choose to be Americans.
And they traveled here too, just like us. They weren't.
That's
native
the whole
here.
term of being native to America. Native
No,
Americans.
it's supposed to be native to the land.
Yeah,
and
keep
the
on.
land
They were
going.
just the
America.
first ones here. Like nobody was native at first. They all came over the Bering Strait, didn't they? They just happened to get here first.
Yeah.
Our language, the language that is spoken is English, and all other languages that came to America, they chose to call it America. Like, of course, in their own language, they would call it something else, and they would call themselves something different. But as a category, like if you refer to people from Europe, you say Europeans because they are from Europe. And if a new wave of immigration and invasion came to Europe, you would, and those people had a new name, like let's say Iligo or something, like you would call those who were there before native Iligoans. It's the same in America. Like we define the words because, well, not we, I never left, but the Americans define the word because they actually won and conquered. Like, sure, they could have adopted the names of the locals, and they had done for a lot of things. I think tobacco is a word that they adopted from the natives. A lot of place names were taken from the natives, but that doesn't mean there's any reason they have to. It's not as if, like, yes, people have a claim to the land, but that doesn't mean that people aren't going to respect that completely. And if you look at what a place is called, do you listen to the people who have no power there or the people who actually rule there? Like, it doesn't matter who is rightful or not. Like, the people who rule and conquered and settled and are the majority in the dominant society, those are the people you listen to because they are the people who actually have a say in what that place is called.
It's like tobacco, like I think a lot of times they use it as trade, like
Oh yeah, and
remember pelts, like they would do the pelts, they would do the furs, and they would always trade them with the French and stuff like that. And that was usually a lot of the times it was like was it the Huron? I think it was the Huron that were really big in upstate New York, and but these tribes are amazing. Then you had all the tribes in Virginia. So it's an interesting thing to look into, like that culture. Just look into culture and how they survive and how they went through life. Because there was
what I find most crazy about the natives of America are the Incans and Aztecs. How just Pizarro, a single Spanish conquistador, and his 50 friends conquered a nation of millions. Like, I'm just gonna, take the whole of the Incan society. And he comes back to Spain, and the Spanish kings are like, what the fuck? What did he do? Why are we? What do you mean you conquered a whole society? And they even I think they even put like Columbus on trial and stuff. Like all of these people, the pioneers of America, they didn't. It wasn't like the European kings said go out and take those specific areas because they didn't know anything. It was the people who actually went there who basically did whatever they wanted and went back and told their kings, and they were like, okay, I guess a lot of the English colonization was through like colonial companies that were established, like just this general area, do whatever you want.
What
Not
was it?
always,
Was it the Indian Trading Company? Is that what the biggest one was? I'm trying to remember.
The Dutch East India Company.
Like yeah,
well,
and they were,
the Brits had the East India Company, which
yes, that's what it was.
conquered India and ruled
The right of conquest.
Well, I mean, through history, the right of
but I think people have a problem with that today, or they're taught to have a problem with it. But I don't think they would want to reverse that conquest either and go live back in the conditions pre-conquest.
The thing is, like, whilst you still have living survivors and there's living memory of that thing, the might makes right is kind of flimsy because what right do you have of conquering this area? But like 400 years after, like that's just how it is. You can't really you can't really argue against that. It's just a fact of life. It doesn't mean you have to like it or to think it's a good thing, but that's just how
some people
history
can seem
functions.
to accept.
Yeah, but that's because people have wishes and a world of ideas for how reality is instead of actually looking at how it is. Yeah, they just have these pleasant ideas that, oh, the world is good. That's wrong. The world should be good, but the world isn't good. Like there's a vital distinction between should and is. And a lot of people, they think the world is as it
Right.
should.
They watched
and
too many
they
Disney
operate
movies
based on
growing up, and nobody taught them differently.
Well, that's actually kind of funny because Disney movies are based on Germanic folklore, which, as all folklore, is based on showing how cruel and horrible the world is and trying to teach kids. Like this girl is manipulated by this evil old aunt, or these two kids are eaten and cooked and made into gingerbread by this witch. Like you have.
I don't know what happened, how Disney got so woke. Like they were like family
Everything
friendly.
did.
But Jeff, Disney in particular, like
because it's a large corporation and people graduated academia being taught these crazy ideas, and they got jobs in these corporations, and they started to change the culture in the corporations, thinking that they were being intelligent. And this was the latest.
Also, something I gotta add, I think, with Disney specifically, is that they went away from trying to adapt all the folktales into just making their own stories with a certain culture as a base. So instead of taking these very specific German or French or Anglo like tales and adapting it to the screen, or the Italian like poem, the Pinocchio, which they horribly adapted, but it's a very good movie. I'll just throw that out there. But like instead of just taking these stories and trying to faithfully adapt them and bring that sort of folk tale spirit to the screen, now they just decide to make movies about the culture and they sort of make up their own stuff. Like Frozen is based on Scandinavia, and there's some hints of the real culture, but like there's so many stories, there's so many perfect stories for the big screen that Disney could have done, but they no longer have it in them to actually base themselves on stories, which is what gave them fame. That was their big selling point. They took these very fantastical folktales, made a massive movies that are now easily showable to kids and enjoyable to adults, and now they just, like Moana, what is that? Like, sure, based on Maori culture, but is it based on an actual Maori story, or is it just their kind of vibes and ideas?
So let me ask you, is there any way to get back to normalcy, like to be normal again? Because it just seems like they're making us more abnormal. Like they're making us think these weird things. Like I just remember how simple life was, just simple. This life was just simple. And now it's so complicated with the him, she, her, and all of the DEI and all, like it's almost like it's a fight just to get through the day. Let's just be normal again. So what is normal? How can we get back to just being simple?
Are you kidding me? This
I-
channel you think is going to contribute to getting back to normal? I'm trying to do the opposite. I'm trying to normalize weirdness.
Yeah, I understand what you mean by normal though, and there's a quote
All
by
right. Let me rephrase that. Get back to not attacking each other. Just be cool with each other.
People are going to people. Humans are going to do that. I don't
Yeah,
think that's
I
a
mean,
realistic goal.
the only
human
difference
nature.
between then and now is that back then it was mostly intergroup violence. Now it's very much intra-group violence. Like now we attack people in our own group because, of course, you can have that. No, I'm a girl, I'm a man. We're different groups. No, you're both Americans. That's kind of one big group.
But there's no sense of an identity that ties us
Exactly.
together as America. That's part of the problem. There's no national American identity. And I think we used to have more of that when we all had the same movies, the same radio, the same
I think
food.
Teddy Roosevelt said it best. Like he said something like, there's no Italian American, there's no Mexican American, there's no Anglo Americans, there's only American, and that is all there is. Like that sort of mindset is what's dominated America in the past, and that sort of forced through a united American culture. Like say what you will, like disagree or not, I certainly have my issues with that level of uniculturalism. I'm more of a pluralist myself, but that level of unity is what lays the foundation for a culture. That lays the foundation for civilization.
Anybody, do you see us ever getting back to being more civil, or you think it's going to keep unraveling? It's just going to keep
social
getting
media. Have you seen Mike? You come from the dramaverse. That question answers itself.
Mm-hmm.
I would say in real life, off of this, just like in real life, people just saying, "Hey, what's up?" Like saying hello to your neighbor, or
They do that here. Like in Seattle, they didn't, but the town I'm in now, that's one thing I noticed is that people at least smile and say hi when you walk by on the street, and I found that very remarkable after being deprived of that for so long. So I think some of that's regional too, but it is still out there.
I'll open a door for a woman, and she's like, "Oh my God, thank you." Yeah. It's like the best thing has happened to her all day because
but now some women might take offense at that.
All right.
That's when you slam the door back in their face.
Don't tempt me.
No, I think we'll move beyond this, but that might take time, like through history. We have had worse.
I think social media is making it more difficult.
I think people are very detached. They're very detached, and they don't want that human contact. They only want that digital contact.
Well, I think that's that's not entirely faithful because they don't care about the digital per se. They care about the human through the digital, but often that human through the digital is kind of false and inauthentic. Not always, but often. Like this, for example, all the viewers who always just watch the stream, that's like the bigger the stream will get, the more parasocial and unhealthy that could be. Not necessarily, but it could be. There's a difference between active participation through the online and just connecting.
Because some people are getting their just parasocially through watching.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that's bad all over, but you have to understand that if you're not really contributing and you're only receiving, that's very different from being part of it. And if all your social contact is always receiving, then you're gonna struggle, and the digital is not gonna help you because the digital facilitates this purely receiving side. You have to actually go out of your way to have the more interactive one. Like if you're just watching YouTube, that's purely receiving. Like of course you can stumble onto streams like this and join the stream and talk and all this stuff, but that's not something that is naturally on the road. Same with like talking on Discord and everything. And so the online is a tool.
It seems like it's trending that way. More and more people are participating in chat, coming up on panels, like viewers that would normally just passively consume. I noticed them taking steps to come on a few, and then some people are starting their own channels. So I think the trend is going to continue as more people discover this medium. They want that. That's what drew me to it. It was something different than passive consumption that I got from TVs and movies. It was that interactive element, and I think that the more people discover that's going to increase. I think that's what makes this so different and unique.
Yeah,
people have been going on like this forever. To be honest, like this social media interaction is like way, way, way before the internet. Public bulletin boards that you could call with, old dial-up modems that were really slow. This kind of stuff was going on. They had forums that, just people going at each other and warring with each other. And then prior to that, well, about the same time that's when also CompuServe was around, and it was identical. They had a CB channel, and it was just people yelling at each other constantly. So, I mean, and it's not, and that was like 1980, 1981. So it's no.
So the CB like
it's just,
radio was like
evolved.
Panelverse even back then.
Well, CB radio, yeah, even prior to that, yeah, absolutely identical
totally
to what
believe it.
this is. Identical to what this is too.
So this is just humans. This is what humans look like when they connect remotely.
Yeah, it's the only difference is between the CB and this is basically a CB radio with a camera. That's all it is. It's the same shit when it comes to doxing people and everything else. It was all done back in the 60s and 70s. So it's gone on forever. I mean, that's just the way. That's something that will continue on for forever. It's the way it is.
Capcom, do you remember the Nextels where you could call somebody, but you have? I was going to ask you a question.
Oh, hey, I didn't realize that. I would not have brought you on panel. I didn't realize there was beef between.
No, there's no beef. It's just I don't want to talk to them.
That doesn't work when y'all are both on the same panel, though. We're trying to have a conversation. So
I'm just asking.
I'm gonna wrap up anyway. I don't have to resolve it now because I'm gonna wrap up.
He's gonna ask you a question. That's all.
Go ask it to somebody who wants to hear it.
But that's you can't bring that expectation onto a panel because people are not going to know who you're talking to and who you're not. So the assumption if you're on a panel, you're available for anybody on the panel to converse with. And I was not aware that you had that with Mike. And so the solution is to just have you up separately. I do that with other people. It's not a big deal. I just didn't know.
Sure. I came up basically too because I had not seen you in quite a while, and I haven't been on any panels lately. So,
well, what's going on with you?
I just wanted to say hi.
Catch us up with you. Here, Mike. I'm gonna drop you because I'm wrapping up anyway. I'm gonna catch up with Capgun for a few minutes, and then I'll probably wind the panel down. But we'll talk again. We're doing that Leggy thing in about half an hour, and Leggy specifically thought you might be a good person to join.
Yeah, but I mean, just to wrap it up, anybody on a panel should be able to talk to each other. That's all I was trying to say. That's all. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll talk again. Take care. All right. So yeah, what's going on with you?
Not a whole. Well, there's been a lot of things that have been going on, developing and such, but just nothing really interesting. Just same
like good stuff or bad stuff.
Well, work.
Yeah,
and bad stuff, but the just trying to. It sucks that everything's slowing down now, economy wise, and I know it's due to the fact that pretty soon people are going to be voting, so I know that's the reason for the slowdown in my in my work. So that's but I know it'll pick up again.
So they're just kind of waiting to see what happens. So they're being conservative.
Yeah, because all of my stuff just deals with disposable income. So it's not, what I have is not like something that's needed.
Oh yeah.
It's not it's not something that people need. It's a want. So it always comes to that. It depends on, when people have more disposable income, then my business is great. But Yeah, it's just when it slows down like this, it gets me a little worried, but it's been good for so long. Um, it's kind of nice to have a break because then I can actually go into. I have other ideas, that I want stuff I want to create and sell, with my woodworking, and I
You're
haven't
self-employed,
literally.
right? You work for
Yeah,
yourself.
well, I'm retired, but I started doing this just as a hobby, but it's turned into a business, and I didn't really expect it to,
Oh
which
wow.
is good. I mean, it got that big. I really didn't know what to expect, but I have other ideas, and that's the only thing is I have a problem with is finding time to implement those ideas now. Turning what I have in my mind into something that's physical. There's a physical, actual, inanimate product. And just going from my mind to putting it on paper to actually, where I finally am starting to cut, for my product. So that's the only thing that sucks is just it. But it looks like now with everything slowing down, I've just got a few more orders left. I'll have time to finally get some of those ideas done, some implement them and see how they work out. But I mean, I haven't had any free time until like I've just got these last few orders to get finished. And then once that's done, it'll give me some time to do that. So I'm excited about doing that. So
Yeah, that
hopefully,
sounds like a great opportunity.
yeah, any more things
Like,
that I could make that people would want to, for me to buy, heck,
yeah.
more profit. So
I admire your initiative and your drive, the stuff we were
yeah,
talking about earlier.
yeah, like I said, I think it was probably due to the fact that I didn't expect it, and to go off like it did, how it did, and has for the last like 7 years. I didn't
Wow.
expect it. You know what I mean? It's like it was just like I'm gonna put these things out here and see if anybody even buys them. And if they do, great. But if not, it's not going to be a big deal. And all of a sudden, it just went after like probably 2 years of this. It just playing around and selling some stuff here and there. It just blew up one day, and I was just
Wow.
full of orders. And I'm like, oh my, I don't think I can handle all this work because it's you're turning out you've got like 10, 15, 20 orders ahead of you, and you're going, oh my god, how. And everybody wants their stuff like now, and it's like I can't do that because this is all handcrafted. So but a lot of people, what they do, a lot of people I've noticed, what they really appreciate though is the fact that it's handcrafted, so they
Hmm.
do understand, and they do know that it takes longer than it does just something that's already prefab. And I start from scratch. Everything is from scratch. So,
Waz is wanting to know what it is that you make.
well, just woodworking stuff, basic normal things, tables, cabinets.
Cabinets,
Yeah,
furniture.
my own custom designs for
Do you
cabinets.
have a website or anything?
No, it's just all on eBay.
Oh,
I
okay.
just put it all on eBay, and I hate eBay, but it's a necessary evil, unfortunately, because they take so much money out of you, and their business practices are horrible.
Oh,
So,
kind of like YouTube.
and yeah, it's been terrible. I've been with them since 2004, and it's never changed. So, um, but the tables and speaker stands for old vintage speakers that people are now starting really well, actually probably within the last 10 or 15 years, people have started to really appreciate the sound quality of the old vintage like 50s and 60s audio gear. In fact, there are some that were made in like from mid 1960 to like 69, 70. JBL makes a specific set of JBL L100 Century monitors, and they're still used in modern studio facilities to this day. They're old, but they can't produce a speaker today that will still be as it won't be as good as that technology that was created back then.
So they're able to like design those still, but they can't innovate on it.
They do, but I think that they were so well built then that you can't really to get any better sound out of them. There's just something there was just like it just was magic. You know, those guys, the electrical engineers, uh, really knew their stuff. And these guys, these big speaker companies like Klipsch and JBL and DCM, there are several. Um, they just created something that really can't be reproduced. And so, I mean, they've actually, within the last few years, these companies have brought these designs back and they have made a couple of improvements, but other than that, they're still the same as they were back in when they started making them in 1962, 63.
Are they vacuum tubes?
No, no, but that is a whole other thing too. That's if you get a tube amplifier, they're 100,000 times better than anything solid state. You don't need nearly as many watts, and it'll be it's going to be cleaner, and the sound is just amazing. You don't need anywhere near the amount of watts. But it's just something they can't really. It's I mean they've tried to reproduce it, and then there are some other great companies as well, like Bowers and Wilkins, and um, I really didn't know until about 7 years ago just how deep it really went, and because I started thinking about look at all the stereo systems now, not that's it's still like now, but they're bringing that stuff back because people are tired of whenever they went to separates, you know what I mean? Remember the satellites? You put the speaker, like tiny speakers behind you and this and that, and then you had the
Yeah,
subwoofer behind the
yeah.
TV. When they went to that, it was really exciting and great, all this new surround sound stuff, but the quality really just, it was all digital. So a lot of
Okay, hang on.
a lot
Let
of
me
people
address.
went back
I
to
need to
analog.
wrap up anyway. Let me
Sure.
address Mike real quick. Mike, I had explained it, so I don't know what I thought. You seemed like you were okay with it. You were on the panel for a while, and Capgun didn't get any time at all. So I was giving him some airtime. That's what it was about. It wasn't anything personal with you. But if you want to make it personal, you have the option to not come back or participate. But it was not personal on my part, and I thought I had explained what I was doing, and you seemed like you were okay with it. Okay, go ahead.
No, that's it. But no, these companies are really, they're coming now. The prices of these things though are completely, they're outrageous. And a lot of the stuff, like say JBL L100s for instance, are probably, you can get a really nice set that have been that have had some new capacitors put in it, sometimes new limiters and stuff, and completely restored for around $2,000, while the brand new ones that their reproduction ones are like $4,000 for a set.
Wow.
But that's like Jeff, to be honest, that's cheap. Some speakers honestly sell for well over $100,000 a piece, believe it or not. There's some custom companies that do
I
that.
do believe it. I saw watches the other day for 300 something $1,000. So
Yeah,
I guess I can believe it.
yeah, it's insane. And the same thing when you were talking about tubes. I mean, that's a lot of people want to go. They go back to that, and they're a lot more expensive than buying a solid state amp. And the other problem is too is they don't make tubes anymore, so you have to find the
Oh, they
tubes.
don't even make the actual tubes.
No,
Uh,
everything now is, but you'll still find some new old stock, that kind of stuff, to find the matching sets and stuff like that. But those two are really expensive because they're not made anymore. So it's but you can't beat, like, for the sound and everything else. It's just tube amplifiers are my absolute favorite. It's just, but it's, like I said, they're not cheap. Very
well,
expensive.
I hope you make it through the next few
Oh,
months, and
I will.
let,
I've got
let
money
us know
saved
how it
up, so
turns
I'm
out.
good.
And hey,
Yeah,
Spike,
I'll let you know if anything, if any of the designs I've decided to create some new designs, because I've got some good ideas. I'll let you know how they worked. I'll be talking to you way before I'm even building them again,
Okay.
but just to see how you're doing and such. So, but yeah, once I do start that, I'll let you know, and I'll let you know how they work out.
Okay. Yeah, do that.
All right, because I know you love sound, you love music and stuff. So
Yeah, I used to be kind of an audiophile till my ears started going bad, and I can't detect the subtle differences anymore. So
I didn't know that
that
you
saved
had
me a
some.
lot of money.
Yeah, I can't hear highs in one of my ears. I can never remember if it's my left or my right because I worked at a shotgun range several
Oh yeah.
several years ago. Didn't wear earplugs like an idiot.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's the way that
Same
goes.
here. Going to those
Oh, okay.
nightclubs.
Yeah, we have problems.
Speaking of music, Leggy and I, in about 20 minutes, we're gonna be doing. Yeah, Spike. I'm wrapping this one up. I'm gonna take a short break and try to get a bite to eat, and then I'm gonna restart the other stream for Leggy and I. And we're
Yeah, I
gonna
want to watch that. Is it going to be?
we're
Is it going to
talking
be
about
Gen X
Green
Jeff
Day,
channel?
Insomniac, and Michael Jara's Drainland.
Okay.
We each picked an album to go over,
Oh,
and then we're going to
cool.
talk about Gen X culture.
And that's going to
And
be
then we'll
on
have
this
an open
channel.
panel too. We'll probably go for half an hour or so, and then do an open panel.
Okay, it's going to be on this channel, obviously. That's
Yep.
the one you have.
Yep.
Okay,
Same.
great.
I
Well,
just dropped the
I'm
link.
I look forward to catching it.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
thank you. It was
Thank
good
you for
talking.
having me up.
Talk
Yeah,
again.
definitely. Take care.
All right. Take care, Cap. Okay, I got to run, y'all. I'll be here in about 20 more minutes. So catch us then. I dropped the new link, or you can get it on my channel, and I'll see you soon. All right. Take care, everybody. Rock on.